Chapter 2643, The Fate of Traitors, 1. The young Star Lord was the only person who did not flee. The reason why he did not flee was not because he was the foster son of the 9 brilliant Star Lord and was confident that no one would harm him given his identity. The reason was that he had been stunned by the sudden reversal. For a moment he could only hover there blankly. He stared at the corpses of the 3 chaotic primes as they fell from the sky and failed to return to his senses. It was not because he could not accept all this. It had just happened far too quickly. All the formations of the Tianyuan clan had fallen. Destroying the clan was only a matter of a few seconds, so the young Star Lord could already see victory. He had already been ready to see the destruction of the Tianyuan clan and was thinking about the best way to capture Shangguan Moor alive. As a matter of fact, he was thinking about how he should ravage Shangguan Moor. However, he had never thought that in just a few seconds, the 3 chaotic primes he brought would all die, and all the cultivators who attacked the Tianyuan clan would flee for their lives. The Tianyuan clan that should have been destroyed already actually managed to make a turnaround with a crushing advantage. At that moment, he became all alone. All this happened in an extremely short amount of time. He had fallen from heaven to hell. It was impossible for the young Star Lord to not be heavily impacted. How did this happen? The young Star Lord murmured to himself. At that moment, he felt like he was dreaming, as if everything that had happened before him was not reality. But soon afterwards, he noticed Jian Qin, who descended from the sky and vanished into the Tianyuan clan. He regained some confidence. As a matter of fact, some excitement and eagerness flashed through his eyes. Jian Qin, you finally appeared. You finally appeared before me. Although the people I brought retreated in defeat, the outcome earlier is no longer important as long as you've appeared, the young Star Lord murmured to himself. He suddenly became rather excited the moment he saw Jian Qin. At the same time, he carefully hid the life-bound plume the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance had given him. Moor, are you fine? Within the Tianyuan clan, Jian Qin arrived before Shangguan Moor as quickly as he could. As he looked at her pale face and the blood at the corner of her lips, his heart immediately ached. He felt ashamed as well. He had brought Shangguan Moor back from the Taoist sect of Divine Sound to give her a happy, easy environment to cultivate in that far surpassed the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. However, he had never thought that he would have almost doomed her instead. Jian Qin, I'm fine. It's only some small wounds. Go check on Nubis. His wounds are far more severe than mine, said Shangguan Moor. She smiled as if a burden had been lifted from her. Shangguan Moor did not know whether the martial soul lineage could stop experts like Su Jiping and Huangfu Yueji, as Jian Qin was in outer space earlier. As a result, she was very worried about his safety. Now that he had appeared before her unscathed, she could finally stop worrying. Jian Qin carefully examined Shangguan Moor's wounds. After discovering that they were not particularly severe, he felt slightly better. Afterwards, he personally fed a god-tier pill to her before immediately making his way over to Nubis. Jian Qin's face immediately became extremely sunken with what he saw. Nubis' wounds were far worse than he had imagined. Nubis was basically hanging on by a thread. He had a foot in the jaws of death already. Jian Qin fed Nubis the best pills that he had. He stood beside Nubis as he slowly looked around. When he saw the annihilated provincial city beyond the Tianyuan clan, killing intent immediately erupted from the bottom of his heart like a volcano. Young Star Lord. Jian Qin stressed each syllable. At that moment, his killing intent towards the young Star Lord had already reached a point of no return. I've come for my punishment. At this moment, the only surviving ancestral emperor of the Heavenly Moon Empire arrived in the Tianyuan clan. His eyes were hollow and filled with death as he stared at Jian Qin. Afterwards, he lowered his head before everyone in the Tianyuan clan, discarding his pride as a primordial realm expert as he slowly knelt down. He was not kneeling away his personal pride, but the pride of the Heavenly Moon Empire as well. That was because he was the ancestral emperor of the Heavenly Moon Empire, the only remaining ancestor of the empire. Although a large number of people had already run off to hunt down the people who had fled, a portion of them still remained behind. Currently, all the members of the upper echelon, the guards, the servants, and so on stared at the old man who knelt down before Jianqin in shock. It was completely silent. To all proud people, making them kneel was even more difficult than killing them, not to mention that the person currently kneeling was an ancestral emperor of the Heavenly Moon Empire. He was a supreme existence who possessed the power to decide their fates with a single word before the Tianyuan clan had even been founded. At that moment, the ancestral emperor of an ancient empire, someone who possessed insurmountable status, had just knelt right before them. This astounded all the members of the Tianyuan clan. As the patriarch of the Mo clan in the past and the current emperor of the Pingtian Empire, Mo Xingfeng stared at the ancestral emperor with mixed feelings from within the crowd. Several dozen years ago, he was still the measly patriarch of the Mo clan. Their strongest ancestor was only a god, while the Heavenly Moon Empire was like the ultimate ruler of the land he lived on, possessing boundless territory. The primordial realm ancestors of the Heavenly Moon Empire were existences he could not imagine. In less than a century, the ancestral emperor that Mo Xingfeng once believed to be insurmountable just knelt there like that. He felt amazed, unable to calm down for quite some time. Patriarch, I know my crimes. Everything is solely my fault. I'm willing to become a slave to make up for this mistake. I hope the patriarch can spare the Heavenly Moon Empire, the ancestral emperor said submissively. Do you think becoming a slave can make up for the betrayal of the Heavenly Moon Empire? Jianqin did not waver. He stared at the ancestor of the Heavenly Moon Empire coldly as his eyes brimmed with killing intent. If my measly strength does not interest the patriarch, I am willing to die for the sake of the crime. I only hope the patriarch can be merciful and give our Heavenly Moon Empire a chance to redeem ourselves, continued the ancestor of the Heavenly Moon Empire. He had completely accepted death, feeling no fear towards it at all. The one thing he could not stop worrying about was the Heavenly Moon Empire. He was not afraid of death. Whether it be the Heavenly Moon Empire's betrayal earlier or him kneeling down now, it was all for the sake of the Empire's survival. However, he had misjudged the situation and personally pushed the Heavenly Moon Empire towards destruction. Chapter 2644, The Fate of Traitors, 2. Jianqin's expression did not change. He said coldly, "What happened recently makes me hate traitors even more. As long as you're a traitor, only one fate awaits you, and that's death." As he said that, Jianqin used his fingers as a sword. A sharp strand of sword qi immediately shot out, stabbing towards the ancestor of the Heavenly Moon Empire's forehead. The sharp sword qi stabbed into the ancestor of the Heavenly Moon Empire's head mercilessly. From the very start till the end, the ancestor of the Heavenly Moon Empire did not resist, as he knew that all resistance was pointless. Not only would he still die, but it was also likely for him to infuriate Jianqin further and hence burden the Heavenly Moon Empire. Before his death, he could only hope that his sincere feelings could move Jianqin so that he would spare the Heavenly Moon Empire. Even just leaving behind some members of the imperial family would be enough. Of course, he did not receive any promise from Jianqin. From that moment onwards, the Heavenly Moon Empire no longer possessed a single primordial realm expert. A rumble suddenly rang out from the sky. The formation that kept Su Ran trapped had shattered, exposing her old body surrounded by violent streams of energy. As soon as she broke free, she looked at the Tianyuan clan in worry. When she saw how the clan was mostly fine, she immediately let out a sigh of relief. "I can stop worrying now that you're here," Su Ran said to Yun Ziding and Su Qi before looking into the distance. She could clearly see Qing Shan and by roughing hunting down the fleeing primordial realm experts with her vision. Since the martial soul lineage had appeared, it was impossible for her to not know that they had gained the upper hand in the battle in outer space. "I'll leave the matters here to you. We plan on providing reinforcements to the other battlefields," Yun Ziding said to Su Ran before waving his hand. The bronze shield over the Tianyuan clan immediately landed in his hands as a streak of light. It was Yun Ziding who had taken action in that crucial moment, blocking the disaster for the Tianyuan clan. "Hee, aren't you in need of corpses, 8th Junior? Let us help you collect some." Su Qi giggled before leaving after bidding farewell to him. In terms of cultivation, Su Ran was the strongest present. She was even slightly stronger than Yun Ziding, standing at the peak of the fifth heavenly layer. In terms of battle prowess, Su Ran was extremely powerful as well. Rarely would she come across an opponent at the same level of cultivation. She could challenge those at higher cultivation levels than her. However, in terms of killing people quickly, Su Ran was nowhere close to the martial soul lineage. Yun Ziding and Su Qi left the southern region of the Cloud Plain. They went to the eastern, northern, and central regions that experienced even more intense conflict. Su Ran watched over the Tianyuan clan. Jian Chen fed another pill to newbies inside the Tianyuan clan before taking a step and vanishing from there. When he reappeared, he had arrived before the young Star Lord. As he looked at the calm, fearless young Star Lord, Jian Chen's face sank. His gaze became extremely piercing. His surging killing intent seemed like it wanted to invade the young Star Lord's flesh, freeze up his blood, and annihilate his soul. That was how terrifying Jian Chen seemed at this moment. What a terrifying gaze. The young Star Lord's heart could not help but shiver. He felt a chilling feeling fill his body as his skin felt like it was being stabbed by countless swords. That did not mean he was afraid. Instead, it was just a regular reaction towards Jian Chen's terrifying killing intent. People who were nowhere near as powerful as Jian Chen would feel like this. This was how an expert could stifle those weaker than them. In the 1,000 years that the young Star Lord had lived, he had seen countless experts before, but this was the first time he had experienced such intense killing intent. All the experts he met in the past were polite to him, afraid of showing any neglect towards him. They were nothing like Jian Chen, who exposed his killing intent towards him. "Ha! Jian Chen, you seem to be extremely furious. Although I failed to destroy your Tianyuan clan with my own bare hands, I feel that it was all worth it now that I see how your present state. At the very least, I know that all the effort I used on your Tianyuan clan has led to some results." The young Star Lord endured Jian Chen's surging killing intent and scoffed. "Do you really think I'm afraid of doing things to you just because you have a powerful father? It doesn't matter whose son you are today. I'll still kill you. This is you seeking death," Jian Chen said coldly. With that, sharp sword chi immediately condensed on him. Clearly, he was truly ready to kill. Su Ran had also arrived beside Jian Chen. She stared at the young Star Lord for a while before looking at Jian Chen. She could tell with a single glance that Jian Chen was truly ready to kill the young Star Lord. He was not considering about the 9 brilliance Star Lord at all. This made Su Ran hesitate. She was very furious as well, but she did not let her fury impact her judgment. She knew extremely well that Jian Chen would completely offend the 9 brilliance Star Lord if he killed the young Star Lord. The young Star Lord was the 9 brilliance Star Lord's only child. Even though he was just a foster son, he was still the person that the 9 brilliance Star Lord was closest to. However, after hesitating for a while, Su Ran still decided to let Jian Chen do what he wanted in the end. She did not interfere. This was because she was one of the few people who knew that the Anata Grand Exalt was still alive. As long as Grandmaster is alive, the 9 brilliance Star Lord won't be able to create much trouble, thought Su Ran. The young Star Lord seemed to treat Jian Chen's words as the most hilarious joke in the world. He could not help but burst out laughing. "You want to kill me? Jian Chen, you probably don't have that capability, as the person who will be dying today is you, not me." With that, the young Star Lord immediately flipped his hand, and an azure feather silently appeared. He activated the power hidden within it as quickly as he could, without any hesitation at all. Immediately, a power terrifying to both Jian Chen and Su Ran erupted from the feather. The terrifying pressure crushed down on Jian Chen like an invisible mountain, making Jian Chen feel his body sink. He found breathing difficult as his actions became abnormally sluggish. "Be careful!" Su Ran's expression changed drastically as she immediately cried out. She had no courage in fending off this attack at all as she faced this terrifying pulse of power. She wanted to escape with Jian Chen. However, it was already too late. Even though Su Ran was very fast, the azure feather was even faster. It shone with a dazzling azure light, seemingly bypassing space and shooting towards Jian Chen with terrifying speed that could surpass anything. Immediately, a flash of azure light illuminated the world. The feather seemed to become the only existence in the world. Before it, space seized up and time froze. Everything fell silent. Only it could move through this quiet space. This was a strange scene created from being too fast. The heavy threat of death filled Jian Chen's entire soul. His pupils immediately shrank to the size of pins, but there was nothing he could do against the azure light. He could only watch it shine with dazzling light as its reflection in his eyes rapidly expanded. It was simply too fast, so fast that he could not even react in time. He could not use the laws of space, nor could he fuse the twin swords. He could only wait as the shade of death rapidly approached him. Chapter 2645. Heartless interferes. Jian Chen was extremely shocked. He could no longer recall the last time he experienced such an intense sense of danger. Even though he had gone through a lot of danger in the past, he could basically still see a sliver of chance to resist or flee before those dangers. At worst, he would still have some time to think. However, not only was the danger this time sudden, but it was also incredibly fast. He truly did not even have a moment to react. He could not even move a finger. The speed of the azure feather had surpassed everything. Even if Jian Chen possessed things that could save his life, he would not have the time to use it before such speed. Clearly, after the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance failed in the past because of the Aneta Tower, he made countermeasures. When he borrowed the young Star Lord to eliminate Jian Chen, he was worried that Jian Chen would possess some kind of trump card he did not know about, so he planned on using his life-bound plume to erupt with extreme speed. He wanted to kill Jian Chen so quickly that most primordial realm experts would not be able to react. My life-bound plume has been activated. At the same time, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance sat on a barren meteor in a region of space extremely distant from the cloud plane. He allowed the meteor to move at great speeds, taking him towards an unknown place. Suddenly, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance sensed something. He immediately stood up as his sparkling, jade-green eyes stared in the direction of the cloud plane brightly. When the rain abyss clashed with the blue sky venerable earlier, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance chose to back off rapidly without any hesitation even though he was extremely far away from the cloud plane. He backed off to an even more distant region of space and waited there silently. As a result, he could no longer see the cloud plane anymore. However, his excited and eager gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space, and Jian Chen's figure was actually reflected in his eyes the moment his life-bound plume was activated. After the life-bound plume was activated, it basically turned into an eye, allowing him to see its surroundings. Jian Chen, there has never been a single person who has offended me and avoided a bad fate. You are no different. The person who kills you this time is the foster son of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. It's got nothing to do with me. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance sneered. He had many excuses to distance himself from Jian Chen's death such that he would be uninvolved. He could let the young Star Lord and 9 Brilliance Star Lord bear all the responsibility and consequences. He had only given something to the young Star Lord to save his life for the sake of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. How the young Star Lord used it had nothing to do with him. You escaped time and time again in the past. I would like to see how you escape this time. And Aneta Grand Exalt, Jian Chen's death has nothing to do with me. I didn't kill him. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's sneer became even heavier. Using people to kill for him was just too perfect. But very soon, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's smile froze. His entire body stiffened. Outside the Tianyuan clan in the southern region, a small arm extended out from the space there extremely suddenly. The small arm was extremely white and soft, just like an infant's. It only seemed to be the size of a fist. The owner of the arm was definitely a young child. However, the power of ways condensed on the small arm, resonating with the universe. Every single action it made could affect the power of the laws of the world. Afterwards, he closed his hand in a fashion that was not particularly fast. With that, the space there suddenly contracted. It felt like the hand had grabbed the entire region of space. The feather that rapidly shot through the space there was naturally unable to avoid it. In the end, the young Star Lord's greatest trump card for killing Jian Chen, the life-bound plume from the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance, had been caught easily by the hand. No, it could not be described as easily, but casually. Indeed, the hand had only closed itself casually, but it froze up the space there and effortlessly trapped the high-speed feather. Afterwards, a child in red robes appeared before Jian Chen silently. He was not tall, only barely reaching Jian Chen's chest. He stood with his back to Jian Chen as he studied the feather in his hand with interest. At the same time, the heavenly king of azure brilliance stood on his meteor with a darkened face. The red-robed child's face appeared in his eyes. Just as the child looked at the life-bound plume, their eyes seemed to meet across the tremendous distance. They stared each other down. The heartless child. The heavenly king of azure brilliance gnashed his teeth. His joyous expression immediately became extremely ugly. There was even deep fear. There were extremely few people that the heavenly king of azure brilliance dared not provoke in the saints' world. Apart from the 9th heavenly layer grand primes, there were only a few extremely terrifying existences. The heartless child was one of them. Heavenly king of azure brilliance, you're still a little inexperienced to kill someone before me. The heartless child sniggered slightly like he was toying with the heavenly king of azure brilliance. After that, he gently clenched his hand. With a slight bang, the heavenly king of azure brilliance's life-bound plume exploded in the heartless child's hand. Terrifying energy immediately leaked out from the feather, pouring out between the heartless child's fingers as dazzling light. However, this terrifying energy that could even collapse space remained trapped in the heartless child's hand. Not even a sliver of it managed to leak out. As Su Ran stood to one side and witnessed this all, her eyes narrowed. She was shocked. The strength that the heartless child had displayed shocked her. "Senior, it's you?" Jian Chen stared at the heartless child's back. He had a deep impression of this tiny figure. However, when he discovered the terrifying energy trapped in the child's hand, he could not help but show shock. When he met this child in a branch of the Myriad Bone Guild, he had thought he was just a regular member. When he was destroyed the Gloomwater sect afterwards, Jian Chen managed to witness the heartless child's strength for the first time when he managed to kill a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime instantly whilst remaining hidden. But now, such terrifying energy actually remained trapped within the heartless child's hands. None of it leaked out. Such strength threw Jian Chen into emotional turmoil. He could not calm down. Originally, he thought the heartless child was only a regular Grand Prime back at the Gloomwater sect. However, given what he saw today, the heartless child's strength was clearly not something that a regular Grand Prime could possess. He had never thought that the child he had met in a branch of the Myriad Bone Guild would be such a terrifying expert. At this moment, the heartless child clenched his hand again. With that, a miniature black hole immediately appeared within his hands. All of the violent energy was sucked away. Chapter 2646, The Young Star-Lord's Death in the Blink of an Eye. The heartless child easily nullified the threat from the heavenly king of azure brilliance's life-bound plume. The young Star-Lord clearly saw all of this, and his face suddenly hardened as a result. The young Star-Lord also became extremely shocked when he witnessed the heartless child nullify the heavenly king of azure brilliance's attacks so effortlessly. He even felt disbelief. Who are you? Why do you get in my way? Don't you know who my father is?" The young Star-Lord looked at the heartless child in complete fear as he subconsciously staggered backwards. The heartless child did not give off any pulses of energy. He seemed just like a neighborhood kid, but the young Star-Lord felt fear from the bottom of your soul. "Isn't your foster father the 9 Brilliance Star-Lord from the Star Brilliance plane? Others fear him, but I don't. Your foster father will naturally know who I am," the heartless child said with great indifference, without taking the young Star-Lord seriously at all. The identity that the young Star-Lord took pride in was worth nothing before the heartless child. "Why, you're not even afraid of my father." The young Star-Lord's face changed. In the 1,000 years he had lived, no matter where he went, no matter how powerful the expert he encountered was, he would be able to stun them as long as he mentioned his father's name. This young child was the only person out of all the experts he had met to not fear his foster father. He could vaguely sense that the child had probably reached the same level as his foster father. Even if he had not, he was definitely close. Jianchen, you better deal with the matters here first. I'll return in a few days. I have something important to tell you then. With that, the heartless child suddenly vanished. With the heartless child's departure, Jianchen immediately looked at the young Star Lord. His cold gaze and terrifying killing intent made the young Star Lord shiver. Jianchen, you got lucky this time. The young Star Lord shivered inside. Now that he had used up everything, he felt very unconfident as he faced Jianchen. He threw that out there with great reluctance before turning around to leave. Do you still think you can leave before me? Jianchen appeared before the young Star Lord silently, blocking his path. The 9-star sword of heavenly ways slowly appeared in his hand. As he poured energy into it, illusionary stars appeared one after another. The terrifying pressure was enough to kick up the dust in the surroundings. You're only a god king. It won't be degrading for you to die under my 9-star sword of heavenly ways, Jianchen said slowly. He gave off sharp sword chi as he firmly locked onto the young Star Lord. You want to kill me? The young Star Lord's expression changed drastically with that. At that moment he finally lost his composure. He began to panic. A feeling that he had never felt before silently permeated his heart, filling his mind completely very soon. It made him tremble gently. This was fear towards death. My foster father is the 9-brilliant Star Lord. If you even touch a hair on me, my foster father will never space you. Even the heavenly palace of Bishan can't bear the wrath of my foster father, the young Star Lord said fearfully. His pupils gradually shrank. In particular, when he saw Jianchen slowly raise his sword, the young Star Lord's heart trembled even more. Even his feet shook. Father, save me, father. The young Star Lord finally started to fear for his life before Jianchen's killing intent. All of his confidence and composure collapsed in that moment. He felt for his life with a pale face. At that very moment, Jianchen stabbed out. His sword seemed to fuse with space such that the tip vanished as soon as he stabbed out. It suddenly appeared out of thin air right in front of the young Star Lord in an extremely strange fashion. The young Star Lord, who had fled for his life, directly ran into the sharp tip of the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. Spurt! The sharp tip stabbed into the young Star Lord's chest mercilessly. Terrifying sword chi immediately swept through his entire body, severing all his organs and veins. Even his soul failed to escape. The young Star Lord's eyes were wide. His face was filled with disbelief. All the way until his death, he struggled to believe that someone would actually kill him. The foster son of the 9-brilliant Star Lord, Tian Yao, was dead. Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao, who had gained the upper hand in their battle against the Four Symbols Alliance, also discovered the young Star Lord's death. It immediately made the three of them become stern. Finish the battle fast. Han Zong called out. Immediately, Yu Chao and Chu Jian unleashed their full strength. The young Star Lord has actually died. The expressions of the peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance became extremely ugly. The young Star Lord was their source of confidence because he was what tied them to the 9-brilliant Star Lord. Now that this tie had been severed, all of their previous efforts were rendered useless. It was not just that. There was even the possibility that they would have to bear the wrath of the 9-brilliant Star Lord. None of the peak experts on the cloud plane could claim that they were not responsible for the young Star Lord's death. The Righteous Alliance was close with the Tianyuan clan. Perhaps they could receive care from the heavenly palace of Bishing, but their Four Symbols Alliance did not possess such a powerful backing. At that moment, the hearts of the peak experts from the Four Symbols Alliance utterly sank. Bang! Jianchen tossed the young Star Lord's corpse onto the ground inside the Tianyuan clan. Now that the young Star Lord was dead, his killing intent finally began to dissolve. The people of the Tianyuan clan immediately gathered over. They all stared at the young Star Lord's corpse with mixed feelings. None of them uttered a word. They all remained silent. Although the person behind the upheaval on the cloud plane was dead, none of them could light up. Instead, the atmosphere had become rather heavy. They had all heard some things about the young Star Lord's identity during this time. Now that someone so important had died here, They all knew what would happen next. Jianchen, what do you plan on doing next? Shangguan Mu'er arrived beside Jianchen and asked softly. She could imagine the severe consequences of the young Star Lord's death. After all, he was the foster son of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord and the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's only child. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord's wrath was more terrifying than any destructive storm. The Tianyuan clan was as powerless as a baby before it. I plan on taking the Tianyuan clan to the Prosper Plain, said Jianchen. He dared to kill the young Star Lord because he still possessed great merit with the heavenly palace of Bisheng. He could use this merit to exchange for a special piece of territory on the Prosper Plain and get the heavenly palace of Bisheng to protect the Tianyuan clan. Chapter 2647. Dao Jiao. The Tianyuan clan remained silently. No one felt excited at all over Jianchen's suggestion to move the Tianyuan clan to the Prosper Plain. The Prosper Plain was one of the 7 sacred plains of the Saints' world. Its cultivation resources were plentiful, and its environment was on a whole different level compared to the Cloud Plain. However, they had lived on the Cloud Plain for so many years after all. To them, the Cloud Plain was their home. Many of them felt a sense of belonging towards this home. Now that they had to leave this home with no idea whether they could return in the future, all of them were filled with mixed feelings. Moreover, the Tianyuan clan was renowned on the Cloud Plain. Especially after this war, the situation on the Cloud Plain would be reduced to a clean slate. The rise of the Tianyuan clan that had stood up and turned the tides would be unstoppable. If they left the Cloud Plain, all the glory and status that awaited them would be gone as well. Many of the high-ranking members found this to be a great pity. The emperor of the Pingtian Empire, Mo Xingfeng, secretly sighed as well. If it were possible, he did not want to leave the Cloud Plain either. No matter how great the Prosper Plain was, he felt no urge for it at all. The Tianyuan clan was an existence that could reign over everyone on the Cloud Plain. What would the Tianyuan clan be on the Prosper Plain? Jianchen, we can discuss this in the future. A mysterious senior has come to our Tianyuan clan. He helped me earlier, so let's go see the senior. At this moment, Shangguan Mu'er's voice rang out in Jianchen's head. Shangguan Mu'er had communicated with Jianchen secretly, so no one else knew. A senior? You mean the senior that appeared just then? Didn't he already leave? Jianchen looked at Shangguan Mu'er in surprise. Shangguan Mu'er shook her head. She looked at the depths of the Tianyuan clan. No, it's another senior. This senior is still in the Tianyuan clan. I can vaguely sense his location. Jianchen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He immediately expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the entire clan in an instant. However, even after scouring the entire place, he found nothing at all. My soul became extraordinary ever since it fused with a strand of true chaotic force a long time ago. Even cultivators several levels more powerful than me cannot hide from my search. It looks like the senior that Mu'er speaks of is extraordinary. Jianchen was secretly surprised. Afterwards, he passed some matters on to Shiyu about the cleanup of the Tianyuan clan and the provincial city before disappearing into the depths of the Tianyuan clan with Shangguan Mu'er. Shangguan Mu'er could vaguely sense the position of this senior. She made many turns in the clan with Jianchen. Eventually, they arrived in a quiet place in the depths of the clan. They were already within the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan clan. Only a few people who possessed great authority could enter this area. Usually, the security was tight, but as the Tianyuan clan had been in danger recently, the guards here had been reassigned elsewhere. As a result, not a single person could be seen in this huge region. Only a few birds and beasts raised by the clan could be seen scurrying about. In the end, Jianchen arrived at a stone pavilion under Shangguan Mu'er's lead. The stone pavilion was situated near a mountain and water. The mountain was a small one they had moved in from the outside world, while the water referred to a small pond that had been dug out here. The surroundings were filled with lush vegetation as mist curled about. It was an extremely beautiful place. Jianchen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He discovered with a single glance that a figure sat within the stone pavilion. He was a young man in violet robes. He only seemed to be around 30 years of age. He was extremely handsome and gave off a heroic spirit. However, he did not give off any presence at all, not even the slightest trace of life. As he swept past this young man, he found nothing. He could only discover this young man's existence with his eyes. The young man currently sat at the stone table. A teapot was placed on the table, giving off a curling strand of steam. It gave off a refreshing fragrance. It was an extremely precious type of tea. Just a single whiff of it was enough to determine that it was at the god tier at the very least. The young man just sat there, taking things easily as he tried the tea. Jian Chen became stern. He could tell with a single glance that this young man was unfathomable. He was immeasurable. He never thought such a terrifying expert would actually come to the Tian Yuan clan. I am the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jian Chen. Greetings to Senior. Greetings to Senior. Thank you for saving my life earlier. Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er arrived before the man in violet. They both clasped their fists and were very polite. The man did not pay any attention to Jian Chen. As a matter of fact, he did not even glance at Jian Chen. His gaze remained fixed on Shangguan Mu'er the entire time. He studied her carefully and mixed feelings gradually appeared in his eyes. I heard the zither of the demonic cry is with you. I would like to see the zither, said the violet-robed man. His voice was extremely gentle, such that it was comforting. People could not help but develop a good impression of him. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered as he sank into his thoughts with that. He could roughly tell why this man had come. He might have been someone from the same age as the third ancestor of the Taoist sect of divine sound. Shangguan Mu'er did not hesitate. The simple zither of the demonic cry immediately appeared in her hands. As soon as the man saw the zither, his eyes froze. He stared at it blankly as he became dazed. The zith was like a key to a series of memories he had sealed up a long time ago. Reminiscence filled his eyes, along with faint sorrow. Zither of the demonic cry, oh, zither of the demon cry. I've finally seen the zither of the demonic cry again, the man murmured. At that moment, his heart, which had remained silent for who knows how long, that would not move no matter what happened, actually pulsed. He felt something. With a gentle wave of his hand, the zither of the demonic cry drifted over, hovering right before him. His gaze was filled with mixed emotions as he stared at the zither like he was cherishing his memories. He said sorrowfully, the zither of the demonic cry is still here, but you are not. As if the man had thought of something sorrowful from the past, he seemed to be in extremely sad, low spirits. Shangguan Mu'er stared at the man in a strange light. She asked rather eagerly, Senior, do you know Master? She had received the legacy of the third ancestor. Even though Shangguan Mu'er had never seen the third ancestor, or even possessed any impression of her, she treated the third ancestor as her master. Now that she finally met an acquaintance of her master, Shangguan Mu'er was delighted. I know her. I don't just know her. She's the only woman who made me fall in love in my life, the man murmured very softly in undisguisable pain. There was a slight sense of pity as well. But very soon, the man suppressed all his emotions and returned to the same as before. He looked at Shangguan Mu'er gently and said amiably, You're called Shangguan Mu'er, right? Since you're her only disciple, I definitely have to nurture you well so that you can mature in the shortest amount of time possible. Come with me. From today onwards, you'll be able to cultivate peacefully in the Dao clan. The Dao clan? Senior, you're from the Dao clan? However, as soon as she heard him mention the Dao clan, Shangguan Mu'er's expression immediately changed. The man nodded. He treated Shangguan Mu'er extremely well, as if she was the closest person to him. I'm called Dao Jiao. I am indeed from the Dao clan. Shangguan Mu'er, I already know that you experienced a conflict with a junior of my Dao clan. You don't have to worry. If you come back with me, I will give you a satisfying explanation. Chapter 2648. Advice. This time, before Shangguan Mu'er could reply, Jian Chen declined for her. Thank you for your kind intentions, Senior, but Junior already has plans regarding Mu'er's future cultivation. Junior plans on sending her to the heavenly palace of Bishing. After learning that Dao Jiao came from the Dao clan, Jian Chen decided to stop Mu'er from going with him. He did not make this decision because he felt grievances towards the Dao clan. Instead, it was because of the primeval divine hall sealed within the world of grand clarity. The primeval divine hall had been sealed up by the Dao Union saint from the aeon before the last. They resented each other. Jianchen had always been thinking about the primeval divine hall. He had already made up his mind to return to the world of grand clarity and become the master of the primeval divine hall as soon as he collected 10 droplets of essence blood from saints. It was extremely likely for the Dao clan, one of the Archean clans of the saints' world, to come from the Dao Union saint. As a result, Jianchen was extremely worried that the grievances between the Saint of Grand Clarity and the Dao Union Saint would be inherited by him and the Dao clan if he obtained the primeval divine hall. Even if such a matter was not particularly likely, Jianchen wanted to maintain his distance from the Dao clan. The heavenly palace of Bixing, Dao Jiu murmured, and he frowned slightly. He glanced at Jianchen with some displeasure. Originally, he did not plan to waste words on this topic. However, when he considered that Shangguan Mu'er was the only successor of the woman he loved and how he wanted to take Shangguan Mu'er back to the Dao clan to take care of her, he could only say, "The heavenly palace of Bixing is indeed more powerful than our Dao clan, and our Dao clan cannot be compared to them in terms of resources. However, Shangguan Mu'er, if you really do go to the heavenly palace of Bixing, they won't spend too many resources on you. On the other hand, in my Dao clan, I will nurture you as a direct disciple of mine. As a result, the Dao clan is more suitable than the heavenly palace of Bixing for you. You will benefit even more in the Dao clan." Mu'er is extremely grateful for Senior's kindness, but Mu'er has already made up her mind about accompanying Jianchen in the future. Mu'er does not wish to go elsewhere. Shangguan Mu'er did not waver at all. She declined without hesitation. Dao Jiu could tell with a single glance that Shangguan Mu'er had already made up her mind, and she was not interested in the various benefits the Dao clan could offer. "If that's the case, I won't force it on you. If you think it through in the future, just crush this jade talisman. I will send people to fetch you. My Dao clan welcomes you at any time." Dao Jiu extended a finger, and the corner of a jade talisman immediately condensed out of nothing. From the corner, it rapidly appeared. Very soon, a palm-sized, exquisite talisman appeared before Shangguan Mu'er. A pattern of primal simplicity was engraved on one side, while the other side had the word Dao that seemed to contain endless mysteries. Creating something from nothing. Jianchen was surprised when he saw this. He could tell with a single glance that the jade talisman had not been pre-constructed. Instead, it had been created by Dao Jiu through his abilities. Moreover, what he created was no ordinary jade talisman. It possessed the presence of the ways, something extraordinary that hid profound power. Just creating a jade talisman was nothing difficult, but creating something that possessed such a profound presence of ways was miraculous. That alone was enough to demonstrate just how astonishingly skilled Dao Jiu was. His comprehension of the laws of the world had reached an extremely astonishing level. If you come across any powerful opponent in the future, you can just take out the jade talisman. It's not a treasure for defense, but it does represent me to a certain degree. However, not everyone can recognize this jade talisman. You'll need to deal with the people who can't yourselves, but those who can should show some respect towards me. Dao Jiu looked at Jianchen. He did not treat Jianchen as amiably as Shangguan Mu'er. He seemed rather cold as he said, "I know you've returned the Unetta Tower and gained great merit for your service to the heavenly palace of Bixing. However, for the sake of Shangguan Mu'er, let me give you a piece of advice. The heavenly palace of Bixing isn't as great as you imagine them to be. Sending Shangguan Mu'er to the heavenly palace of Bixing may not necessarily be a good idea. As for your so-called Tian Yuan clan, if you want it to continue to thrive, don't go to the Prosper Plane. I know you are worried about the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, but you can relax about that. As long as you're still alive, he won't dare to do anything." With that, Dao Jiu vanished. He left silently and did not leave a single trace behind. He had already departed. Dao Jiu had left, but Jianchen did not get any peace at all. He sank into his thoughts after hearing Dao Jiu's words at the very end. He also became extremely stern. He did not know who Dao Jiu was. However, given the man's great cultivation, he could have easily taken Shangguan Mu'er away, but he chose not to. Instead, he respected Shangguan Mu'er's choice. That alone changed Jian Chen's opinion of Dao Jiao slightly. Someone like that definitely would not lie. Since he had said sending Shangguan Mu'er to the heavenly palace of Bixing was not necessarily a good idea, there was definitely a reason for it. Jian Chen had to ponder deeply about his words regarding the Tian Yuan clan. Dao Jiao's words clearly revealed one fact. The Prosper Plain was not a blessing to the Tian Yuan clan. At this moment, several powerful presences descended upon the Tian Yuan clan, breaking Jian Chen's train of thought. The battle in outer space had already ended. Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao had returned to the Tian Yuan clan together. Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, Lian Wuji, and the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak had left separately. The battles in the other regions still needed them. Jian Chen temporarily cast aside Dao Jiao's words and arrived at the front with Shangguan Mu'er. He saw several corpses with a single glance. They belonged to Wulu, Gong Ji, and Chang Feng Yun. Unfortunately, I let the Gentle Breeze ancestor escape, Han Zong said in pity. The Gentle Breeze ancestor was the strongest expert of the Four Symbols Alliance. Prior to their battle, Han Zong had drained half his martial soul force with the heaven-severing technique before becoming heavily injured. It was very difficult for him to stop the Gentle Breeze ancestor from escaping while not being at his peak condition. First senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, it's all thanks to you that we won this war. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't even be able to keep the Tian Yuan clan safe. Please come in and rest. Jian Chen clasped his fist. We better return to the Mountain Soul instead. We can rest and heal up better there. However, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord will definitely fly into a fury with the young Star Lord's death. You can't stay on the Cloud Plain any longer. You have to return to the Martial Soul Mountain with us immediately, Han Zong said sternly. They felt very pressured by the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. He was a 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Prime after all. Before such an expert, they could only depend on the Martial Soul Mountain. If we had 7 people like before, stopping the 9 Brilliant Star Lord would probably be rather difficult, but we already possess 8 people now. As a result, the power of the Martial Soul Mountain will become even more powerful. The Martial Soul Mountain should be able to stop the 9 Brilliant Star Lord now, said Yu Chao. Chapter 2649. The war ends, little junior brother. Let the people of the Tian Yuan clan stay in the Neptunian Divine Palace for now. I'm afraid that the 9 Brilliant Star Lord will direct his wrath onto the Tian Yuan clan, Chu Jian added. It was impossible for their martial soul lineage to fend off an expert like the 9 Brilliant Star Lord with the strength that they possessed. They could only hide on the Martial Soul Mountain. The Martial Soul Mountain was the martial soul lineage's final and toughest line of defense. As they conversed, Yun Ziding and Su Qi returned from outside. Clearly, they had gone through an intense battle because they were now covered in blood. However, it was not their blood, but the blood of enemies. Moreover, the two of them seemed rather exhausted. This was the result of overusing martial soul force. What? 8th junior brother, you really killed the young Star Lord? Yun Ziding and Su Qi had not learnt of the young Star Lord's death yet. They were stunned when they received the news. However, that was all. They did not blame Jian Chen. As Han Zong had said, their martial soul lineage would not go looking for trouble, but that did not mean they were afraid of trouble. They were rather similar to Jian Chen in this aspect. Ah, good job killing him. How can you not kill him after he has harassed you like this? If you're so hesitant and fearful, that won't match up to how our martial soul lineage does things. Yun Ziding laughed aloud. He was at great ease, casting a gaze of commendation towards Jian Chen. Call back 7th and 6th junior brother. The young Star Lord is dead, so the 9 Brilliant Star Lord will never just drop the matter. We need to return to the Martial Soul Mountain immediately, Su Qi said sternly. The successors of the Martial Soul lineage were all very stern. They planned on returning to the Martial Soul Mountain as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Jian Chen, the source of all of this, seemed very composed. However, he did understand the thoughts and feelings of his seniors. There really were not many people in the saints' world who could bear the wrath of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. After all, he was a terrifying existence who had reached the apex of the world, only second to Grand Exalts who were literally the heavenly ways themselves. Even renowned peak organizations in the saints' world would not be able to avoid destruction if they offended such an expert. However, based on what Dao Jiao told him, Jian Chen did not worry too much about the 9 brilliant Star Lord's revenge. As a result, he was calm and composed. "Seniors, you don't have to worry about me. Recently, a senior from the Dao clan visited our Tian Yuan clan. He said that due to some reasons, the 9 brilliant Star Lord won't touch the Tian Yuan clan anytime soon," said Jian Chen. Although this was the first time he had seen Dao Jiao, he believed that Dao Jiao definitely was not someone who would trick him. What? The Dao clan? One of the Archean clans? The Dao clan? Han Zong and the others were surprised when they heard that. Any organization referred to as an Archean clan would have existed for an entire aeon at the very least. They were tremendous, immovable existences in the saints' world. They feared nothing and could even scorn the world. This was because no one, apart from Grand Exalts, could do anything to them. Seeing Jian Chen nod, Han Zong immediately followed up with another question. "What was his name?" "Dao Jiao," replied Jian Chen. "Dao Jiao." Han Zong murmured as his brows furrowed in thought. Afterwards, he shook his head gently. Although the Dao clan is reclusive, they haven't completely cut off from the outside world. I've basically heard of all their peak experts who possess some renown, but Dao Jiao isn't among them. Perhaps he's one of the few people that I don't know. However, any Archean clan in the saints' world is far more terrifying than the 9 brilliant Star Lord. It's just that basically all of them are reclusive. Rarely do they show themselves in the saints' world, so barely anyone knows about their existence. Han Zong paused. After careful consideration, he said, "Since this comes from an expert of an Archean clan, the information is trustworthy. Of course, you should still be more careful." Afterwards, Qin Shan and Bai Ruffing returned to the Tian Yuan clan together. However, they did not stay for long. They left with Han Zong and everyone else after a short conversation with Jian Chen, returning to the Martial Soul Mountain to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Jian Chen remained in the Tian Yuan clan. He did not return to the Martial Soul Mountain with everyone else. After all, the Cloud Plain was where the Tian Yuan clan's foundations lay. Especially after these continuous trials, its foundation had become extremely sturdy. He just needed to wait for the clan to grow and blossom, so he really did not wish to take the Tian Yuan clan away from the Cloud Plain unless he had to. Jian Chen lowered his head to glance at the space rings he was holding. These space rings were given to him by Han Zong, Su Qi, and Qin Shan before they left. They did not hold any treasures. Instead, they contained the corpses he required. "Jian Chen, what do we do next? Do we leave the Cloud Plain?" Qin Yidao arrived before Jian Chen. She was not very affected at all. She had not spent a long time in the Tian Yuan clan, so she did not feel a fierce sense of belonging to it. She felt nothing towards the Cloud Plain either, so she did not really care about whether they left or stayed. All the people gathered there looked over after hearing Qin Yishuan's question. They were all nervous and uneasy. Most of them did not want to leave, but they knew that this was not a decision for them to make. It would be up to Jian Chen. That was all because Jian Chen was everything to the Tian Yuan clan. After some thought, Jian Chen called out, "Mo Xingfeng, Patriarch." Mo Xingfeng immediately stepped forward from the crowd, clasping his fist at Jian Chen. "Immediately go and retake the territory of the Pingtian Empire. Rebuild the empire," ordered Jian Chen. Mong Xingfeng beamed from that. Jian Chen's orders had just announced to everyone that the Tian Yuan clan would not be leaving the Cloud Plain. Immediately, many of the members of the upper echelon were overjoyed. Of course, some of them were worried about the 9 brilliant Star Lord's vengeance. Are Protector Shui, Protector Xing, Protector Bai, and Protector Mei present? Jian Chen called out. "Patriarch." The 4 protectors all stood forward and greeted Jian Chen politely. "Assist Mo Xingfeng in retaking the lands of the Pingtian Empire. Rebuild the Pingtian Empire as quickly as possible." "Yes, Patriarch," the four protectors replied. You will be responsible for repairing the Tianyuan clan and rebuilding the provincial city, Jian Chen then said to Shiyu. Patriarch, what should we do with the Heavenly Moon Empire? Shiyu asked. The Heavenly Moon Empire's betrayal had completely infuriated her. Now that the Tianyuan clan had regained power, the first thing she thought of was the Heavenly Moon Empire. Deal with the Heavenly Moon Empire however you want. After handing over roughly everything, Jian Chen became the irresponsible leader again, paying no more attention to the repair and operation of the Tianyuan clan. He left it all to Shiyu and the upper echelon of the Tianyuan clan to handle. He arrived in the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan clan with Shangguan Mu'er and the heavily injured newbies. He took out various god-tier pills to assist newbies' healing. At the same time, the tides turned in the intense battles in the central, eastern, and northern regions with Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yanwuji's return. The armies of the Four Symbols Alliance immediately collapsed before the three Grand Primes. All the chaotic primes were slain. Without any Grand Primes, the Four Symbols Alliance immediately collapsed. Over 80% of their primordial realm experts were slain. Having run out of choices in the end, they surrendered to the Righteous Alliance. The Righteous Alliance did not slaughter the entire Four Symbols Alliance. They accepted the surrender from their lingering forces, and all the cultivators who survived became prisoners. Now, the Cloud Plain, which had fallen into upheaval after the Heavenless Demon Exalt, had finally settled down completely. The entire plain became just as peaceful as before. Chapter 2650. The Lord of Heaven's Link Peak's fate. The Cloud Plain had settled down, but the scars of war would not close up in a short time. Apart from that, the Cloud Plain had suffered great losses as well. Their overall strength plummeted, probably becoming the weakest plane out of the 49 planes of the Saints' world. The number of Grand Primes across the Cloud Plain had plummeted to 4. Only Tong Wuming of the Tong family, Lai Yanwuji of the Fire God clan, Zhou Zhidao of the Cosmic Sect, and the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak remained. The former three were heavily injured, making it very difficult for them to make a full recovery in a short amount of time. In particular, back when Lai Yanwuji was forced into dire straits by the Four Symbols Alliance, he had burnt his own essence blood without any hesitation at all because of his fiery temper. As a result, he directly injured the core of his body such that his strength would be affected. It would even have a certain influence over his future cultivation. Lai Yanwuji was not even the one who suffered the worst injuries. Although he had injured the very core of his body, there was still a chance of recovery given some time and heavenly resources. Compared to the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, the injuries he suffered were akin to scratches. As the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak's body was eaten away by the curse, it had been completely corrupted. He had to abandon it. Originally, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak could completely suppress the curse and slow its spread. Even if he could not nullify it, he could still last much longer. The more time he had, the more likely it was for him to completely nullify it. However, the situation on the Cloud Plain had suddenly changed. When he saw Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yanwuji be beaten to a point where they basically could not even fight back, he struck out without any hesitation. He stopped suppressing his curse to use his full strength in a battle against the Gentle Breeze ancestor just to keep him busy. If it were not for the selfless sacrifice of the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, it would have been impossible for Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yanwuji to last until the martial soul lineage came. One or two of them would have died at the very least. Not only were they individually weaker, but they were even at a numerical disadvantage. The difference was rather significant. On that day, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yanwuji did not bother with healing, dragging their wounded bodies to the top of the Heavens Link Peak. Even Jian Chen and Su Ran were there. At that moment, the 4 peak organizations that basically represented the entire Cloud Plain had gathered there. Although the Tianyuan clan's heritage was lacking and their strongest member was only Su Ran, no one could ignore their status even if they did not depend on the heavenly palace of Bishing. Even though the current Tianyuan clan lacked strength, they could stand on the same level as the Tong family, the Cosmic Sect, and the Fire God clan. Their position could even be higher. Before the five of them was the illusionary lord of the heavens Link Peak. This was the Peak Lord's soul. He had already abandoned his body, surviving in the form of a soul. However, even with that being the case, the Peak Lord still did not manage to break away from the curse. A green thread extended from his dantian in his soul. It was like the thread was reaching towards the Peak Lord's head. The thread was the curse. It was tough and powerful, just like a disease that could not be cured. Once it reached the Peak Lord's illusionary forehead, it would mean his death. Peak Lord, here is soul cleansing grass. It can purify the soul to a certain level. Although it can't nullify the curse, it's better than nothing. I have an Empyrean soul pill here. It can strengthen the soul to a certain level. Peak Lord, now that you face the curse, the stronger your soul is, the better it will be for you. Tong Wuming, Zhou Jidao, and Lian Wuji all took out some heavenly resources or pills that were beneficial to the soul. Every single one of them were very precious, even effective on grand primes. They were treasures that basically had only demand but no supply. Jianchen also took out some heavenly resources he had obtained from the space rings of Luo Mantian and the others, hoping that he could assist the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was someone worthy of respect. Jianchen also hoped the Peak Lord could be freed from the torture of the curse sooner. These items are all useful to you, so don't waste them on me. Even if I have these heavenly resources, it'll just give me a few hundred years at most. However, if I suppress the curse with everything that I have, I can last 10,000 years at the very least, said the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. He was amiable and extremely calm, having fully accepted death. Peak Lord, don't worry. I will find a way to get an expert who has comprehended the laws of curse to nullify your curse, Jianchen said firmly. This curse has forced the Peak Lord into such a state. The expert who left behind the curse on Luo Mantian's dagger was definitely not just a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime. They were at the fifth heavenly layer at the very least. I just happen to know someone who has comprehended the laws of curses to the fifth heavenly layer, except the price he asks for is just too great. It's impossible for our cloud plane to afford it, Lian Wuji said in pity. What is he looking for? Tong Wuming's eyes lit up. He wants an innate item of nature, Lian Wuji sighed. For experts who had reached such a level of cultivation, ordinary items would no longer interest them. Anything that interested them would be extremely precious. As soon as they heard that, the tiny sliver of hope Tong Wuming and Zhou Jidao held was immediately put out. Innate items of nature were far too precious. Such items included the Rain Abyss innate orchid of 5 elements and the water cloud iron that the blue sky venerable sought. They were all innate items of nature. Even though they would not be as great as some 9th grade god tier treasures, they were definitely much rarer. Normally, only peak experts would possess such items. You don't need to do that for me. Don't we still have 10,000 more years? Who knows, maybe I'll find a way to nullify the curse during that time, said the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. After leaving the Heavens Link Peak, Jianchen seemed rather silent. He had been thinking about how he could assist the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. He could only think of the heavenly palace of Bishing and the Dao clan for experts who had comprehended the laws of curses to the 5th heavenly layer of Grand Prime at the very least. They might not have people who had comprehended the laws of curses to such a level, but they could simply ask an expert like that to assist him given their renown. Jianchen did not even try to think about the Dao clan. As a result, only the heavenly palace of Bishing remained. He still had great merit in the heavenly palace of Bishing. It should be enough for their First Majesty, Exian, to personally take action. However, he had always treated the merit as a final card he could play to protect the Tian Yuan clan. He had prepared it against the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, so using it now would basically be cutting off the Tian Yuan clan's final path of retreat. My laws of curses is only at God King. Even if I use up the golden core of laws completely, I'll only be able to reach infinite prime. 10 millennia. I wonder if I can comprehend the laws of curses to the 5th heavenly layer of Grand Prime in 10 millennia. Jianchen sighed inside as he felt powerless. Chapter 2651. Internal Division. Jianchen and Su Ran left the central region, returning to the Pingtian Empire in the southern region. Now, the Pingtian Empire had already reclaimed all of its lost land. With the powerful backing of the Tianyuan clan, Emo Xingfeng's position as emperor had stabilized once again. Emo Xingfeng's cultivation was nothing special. He was nowhere close to becoming a god king, so who knows how many people were envious and jealous of his position. However, no matter how many people envied it, Emo Xingfeng's position was immovable, as he was someone Jian Chen personally appointed. Jian Chen's words carried quite some weight across the entire Cloud Plain, let alone the southern region. Even the Tong family, Fire God clan, and Cosmic sect would take them seriously. Jian Chen was in no hurry to return to the Tianyuan clan. As soon as he entered the Pingtian Empire, Su Ran and he disguised themselves. They traveled across the Pingtian Empire at a steady rate as they toured many provincial cities. All of the provincial cities of the Pingtian Empire had suffered damage of varying degrees from the recent war. Now that the war had ended, all the provincial cities were undergoing repairs. The entire Pingtian Empire was bubbling with vigor and vitality. It was prosperous. In the end, Jian Chen arrived in the sword-seeking province. The people of the Ling family were handling the repairs there. When he arrived there, Jian Chen could not help but think about Ling Hogong. Back then, Ling Hogong was one of the few people who gained Jian Chen's recognition in the Divine King of Pingtian. However, after he received God King Duanmu's legacy, he vanished, and there was no news of him since then. With Jian Chen's current strength, he would be able to find Ling Hogong as long as he was still on the Cloud Plain. However, he did not. Ling Hogong had obtained God King Duanmu's legacy. That was his fortuitous encounter, but he clearly needed time to digest and absorb this fortune. He would appear when the time was right. Jian Chen had secretly taken care of the Ling family after Ling Hogong left. Although he rarely took personal action, he had told the Tianyuan clan to watch out for them a very long time ago. As a result, the Ling family had been developing smoothly under the Tianyuan clan's care. They had no reason to worry about their status. In the end, Jian Chen returned to the Dong'an province. As soon as he arrived, he saw towering city walls stretch up from the ground. The reconstruction of the provincial city was one of the greatest scale in the Pingtian Empire. The project used the most people as well, reaching over 1 million. With over 1 million cultivators rebuilding the city, the speed was apparent. In just a short amount of time, the city walls had become extremely imposing. Not only was it grander than before, but it even wrapped around a larger area. Using this opportunity, the provincial city of the Dong'an province had expanded once again. The entire provincial city was destroyed, but the new provincial city is much grander than before. Brother, the provincial city we've built will probably be able to match up to the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire. I haven't gone to the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire before, but I heard from the foreman that our city will be even more magnificent and even more awe-inspiring than the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire. Right? Not only is the Dong'an province the greatest province in the Pingtian Empire now, but it's also the greatest province in the entire southern region. You don't even know what you're saying. What greatest province in the southern region? Let me tell you straight that the current Dong'an province is the greatest province across the entire Cloud Plain. Don't ask me how I know this. I have a niece who happens to be an attendant in the Tianyuan clan. She specially serves a protector in the Tianyuan clan. She heard it from the protector. A protector? Heavens, isn't that a primordial realm expert from the Tianyuan clan? Similar conversations could be heard within the provincial city. It was filled with amazement and astonishment. Many people became lost in wonder when they saw the scale and grandeur of the new provincial city. Even though the construction was not finished yet, its tremendous scale left a permanent impression on many people. Why is the city so big? When Jian Chen saw the provincial city, he was surprised as well. When Shiyu gave him the blueprints for the new provincial city, he had only glanced through it roughly, as there was no need for him to worry about these small matters with Shiyu and the others present. He only gained a rough understanding that the new provincial city would be rather large. He had never anticipated it to be so big. Its size could truly match up to the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire now. The current Tianyuan clan indeed requires a provincial city of such a scale, said Su Ran. She was completely unaffected by this sight. She had lived for millions of years and had been to many places. Her insight was so great that she only found the provincial city to be at a tolerable size. Afterwards, the two of them returned to the Tianyuan clan. Before they could even sit down properly, a few members of the upper echelon asked them to visit the discussion hall. Over a dozen people were seated within the majestic discussion hall. Most of them were the managers of the clan and members of the upper echelon. Jianchen was only familiar with a fraction of them. I am Hua Qing. Greetings to the Patriarch. I am Hua Antai. Greetings to the Patriarch. As soon as he entered the discussion hall, two middle-aged men stood up in a hurry. They arrived before Jianchen politely and rather submissively before directly dropping to their knees and bowing their heads. Jianchen looked at the two of them and frowned slightly. Hua Qing and Hua Antai were both late god kings. On the cloud plane, such individuals would possess some status, yet they actually discarded their pride to kneel before him. Jianchen became a little confused about their intentions. Patriarch, the Hua brothers are from the Heavenly Moon Empire. At this moment, Shiyu explained proactively, the Heavenly Moon Empire had three peak organizations, which were the Imperial Family, the Earth Spirit Sect, and the Taoist Sect of Calm Clouds. Below the three of them would be organizations like the Hua clan founded by the Hua brothers. The Hua clan has already sworn its loyalty to the Tianyuan clan, so members of the Hua clan will never betray us. As a result, I plan to groom the Hua clan into the controller the Heavenly Moon Empire. I was wondering if the Patriarch agrees with me. Patriarch, you must handle this matter carefully. The Hua clan isn't the most powerful in the Heavenly Moon Empire. If we want to support an organization, we should support the most powerful one. Only then will we be able to remain in control. In my opinion, the Gula clan is the most suitable. Patriarch, the Zile clan of the Heavenly Moon Empire has had many years of business with our Tianyuan clan. They would always let us get the best end of the deal. As a result, we would gain the greatest profits with the smallest price. They have always been good friends with our Tianyuan clan. Patriarch, please forgive me for my honest opinion, but I think we should support organizations on good terms with us rather than organizations that we have no idea what they're thinking. After Shiyu, two other high-ranking members of the Tianyuan clan spoke out, recommending a clan each. Although Jianchen had left Shiyu to manage how they would deal with the Heavenly Moon Empire, he did state that the Tianyuan clan should not occupy the Heavenly Moon Empire. He understood that he would always worry about the future of the Tianyuan clan due to his identity, so he always minimized the size of the clan, preventing it from expanding too much. That way, it would be easier for him to evacuate them all. Everyone naturally obeyed his words. Since the Patriarch was against the Tianyuan clan occupying the Heavenly Moon Empire, the high-ranking members of the clan all got to action to support a side. Jianchen could tell that this had happened as well. Clearly, Shiyu had called him over in such a hurry because so many high-ranking members were against her decision, so she could not make one. The words of these high-ranking members seemed very reasonable on the surface. They all seemed to be considering for the Tianyuan clan. You're recommending the other two organizations so eagerly, so you must have received quite a lot of benefits from them. Jianchen suddenly looked at the two high-ranking members and said calmly. Shiyu's identity was not as simple as an elder of the Tianyuan clan. She was also the princess of the Shi Empire, so her status was great. Why would these people oppose her without enough benefits to urge them on? Chapter 2652, Domination in the Southern Region. You are mistaken, Patriarch. You are mistaken. We're solely thinking about the interests of the clan. We would never betray the clan for selfish gains. Patriarch, we are sincerely working for the development of the clan. We will never conduct embezzlement. The Patriarch must look into the bottom of this. Jianchen's words frightened the two high-ranking members quite a lot. They immediately announced their loyalty in fear. Jianchen possessed supreme authority in the Tianyuan clan. These people could ignore Shiyu and refute her to a certain degree, but they dared not show any defiance to Jianchen at all. Shiyu glanced past the two of them and frowned slightly. She did not consider this possibility of embezzlement before because the two of them had sufficient reason to recommend the other two clans. They were very reasonable with all aspects, completely treating the development of the Tianyuan clan as the priority. She could not refute them. However, now that Jianchen had spoken, she immediately developed doubts. Cold light flickered through her eyes. She knew Jianchen was a primordial realm expert and could look into many things. His capabilities could not be compared to godhood cultivators. He would never mention things aimlessly. Since he had said that, he must know something she did not. Jianchen glanced past the two of them calmly and did not look into the matter anymore. His statement was not groundless. As they were not particularly powerful, he could vaguely see their threads of karma. Even if he could not discover everything by peering into these threads of karma, he could roughly confirm some matters. It was impossible for an organization to survive if it were too transparent. Not a single organization could avoid such matters, including the Tianyuan clan that possessed a special status on the Cloud Plane. As a clan that could influence the entire Cloud Plane, the Tianyuan clan naturally became a target that all organizations wanted to be on good terms with. They racked their brains and came up with everything they could to establish whatever tie they could with the Tianyuan clan. As a result, these members of the clan who were not particularly powerful but possessed great status, to the point where they could even influence the clan to a certain degree, had become their targets. Humans were greedy. Basically, no one could resist the temptation of great benefits. Not to mention that the temptation they faced was the Heavenly Moon Empire. As Jianchen sank into his thoughts, the two people who had been doubted faced inner turmoil. They were both extremely unsettled and nervous, afraid that something would be exposed. They had not done anything against the clan, but they had accepted some benefits from other organizations. Shiyu, you can be fully responsible for these small matters. There's no need to report to me. In the end, Jianchen did not choose to pursue the matter. He stood on a completely different level from them, so his perspective would be different as well. Many ancient organizations would be willing to butt heads and shed blood over the Heavenly Moon Empire, but it really did not interest Jianchen. As long as they did not betray the Tianyuan clan and get in the way of the clan's interest, Jianchen could not be bothered to deal with these matters. He left it all to Shiyu. Clearly, Jianchen favored Shiyu a little more out of all the high-ranking members of the clan. Jianchen's word was the final word for all of them. With that, no one dared to oppose Shiyu anymore. In the end, under Shiyu's insistence, the Hua clan led by the Hua brothers gained control over the Heavenly Moon Empire. The Hua clan became the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire. They were an imperial family that had yielded to the Tianyuan clan and served the Tianyuan clan. At the same time, the past ruler of the southern region, the Blood Sun Empire, faced destruction. The two remaining ancestral emperors of the Blood Sun Empire both died in the central region, and their infinite primes suffered heavy casualties. Just as the imperial family was weakened, a few organizations originally suppressed by the empire banded together and directed their swords towards the empire, killing their way into the imperial palace. The imperial family was basically completely destroyed. As the current emperor of the Blood Sun Empire, the Blood Emperor was beheaded. His head was hung high up on the city walls. The organizations clearly made tight arrangements when they took action. Consequently, not a single member of the imperial family managed to escape. Apart from the ninth prince, they all died. As the imperial family was ravaged, the ninth prince remained unscathed despite being right in the middle of the fighting. It was a miracle in the southern region. I never thought that the Blood Sun Empire, after ruling over the southern region for more than 1,000,000 years, an empire known to be everlasting, would just be destroyed on a whim. It's impossible for the Tianyuan clan to be uninvolved in the Blood Sun Empire's destruction. Without the Tianyuan clan's permission, those organizations could never banded together. But the Tianyuan clan sure is strange. They actually wouldn't take the Heavenly Moon Empire, such a juicy piece of territory, for themselves, and gave it to someone else. Who knows what they are thinking? Do you think the Tianyuan clan will forsake the territory of the Blood Sun Empire as well? What do you know? That's called being aloof. The current Tian Yuan clan has transcended worldly attachments. They do not value fame at all, so why would they place value in these benefits? Though, the ninth prince of the Blood Sun Empire sure is pitiful. He's a complete loner. It's said that he has already become a wanderer. Right? I even recently heard that someone saw the ninth prince. His clothes were in tatters and his hair was a mess as well. He seemed like a beggar. Sigh, the ninth prince is a powerful peak god king after all, but he has fallen to such a level. What a pity for him. Discussions about the Tian Yuan clan and the Blood Sun Empire could be heard everywhere in the southern region. They were filled with amazement and wonder. However, most people paid attention to who would be occupying such a vast empire after the Blood Sun Empire had fallen. The organizations that had banded together to destroy the Blood Sun Empire were all silent. No one was there to replace them either. They all occupied the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire, watching over it together. None of them crossed any boundaries, as if they were patiently waiting for something. The Tian Yuan clan was peaceful as well. They did not accept the territory of the Blood Sun Empire either. This situation created another round of discussion among the various cultivators and organizations in the southern region. The topic of the Blood Sun Empire's fate could be heard almost anywhere. It was extremely popular. If it were not for the secret deterrence from the Tian Yuan clan, if it were not for the organizations working together to maintain order, there would probably be many medium-sized and smaller organizations who would try to take advantage of the troubled time to get their hands on a share of the empire. Several days later, an edict that determined the fate of the Blood Sun Empire was formally issued. However, the outcome stunned the entire southern region and even the cultivators in the other regions. They were all astounded. The organizations that had destroyed the Blood Sun Empire announced an alliance. They would control the Blood Sun Empire together. The position of emperor would be rotated among the organizations once every 100 years. Why would it be like this? The Blood Sun Empire is not the Heavenly Moon Empire after all, but the Tian Yuan clan actually doesn't want it. What is the Tian Yuan clan thinking? What do you know? Let me tell you. It doesn't matter who controls the Blood Sun Empire, as it'll definitely be someone from the Tian Yuan clan. As a result, it doesn't matter who the Blood Sun Empire ends up with, there'll be a fact that remains unchanged. Its true master is the Tian Yuan clan. Right? I heard that the leaders of the organizations all went to the Tian Yuan clan and even took over 90% of the resources from the Blood Sun Empire's treasury with them. They're clearly offering all these resources to the Tian Yuan clan. From now onwards, the Tian Yuan clan is in charge of the southern region. Chapter 2653. Shiyu's assassination attempt. The Tian Yuan clan had become the undisputed ruler of the southern region. However, the Tian Yuan clan did not unite the entire region. After gaining control over the Heavenly Moon Empire and the Blood Sun Empire, they fell quiet once again. The Tian Yuan clan did not interfere with the development of the few other ancient organizations and the many divine kingdoms in the southern region either. This did not mean that the Tian Yuan clan had no ambition. It was the exact opposite. Most members of the upper echelon were teeming with ambition. They wanted to unite the southern region and develop into the other regions. Some of them even wanted to establish branches in the central region. With the Tian Yuan clan's current strength and prestige, they could easily achieve that. However, all of these suggestions for expansion were firmly turned down by Jianchen. No one dared to object. Not only did Jianchen's actions confuse these members of the upper echelon, but even many cultivators and scholars of the outside world were left at a loss. The forbidden grounds of the Tian Yuan clan was beautiful and extremely quiet. It was a sharp contrast to the front courtyard of the clan. A water-blue divine hall stood silently in the forbidden grounds, giving off an imposing pressure. This divine hall was the watercloud hall Jianchen had obtained from the Gloomwater sect. Jianchen stood on top of the divine hall, peering out a window at the Tian Yuan clan as he sank into his thoughts. Jianchen, is something bothering you? Shangguan Mu'er arrived beside Jianchen. Her voice was gentle and full of concern. I'm thinking about just how much longer the Tian Yuan clan's current glory can last, Jianchen said with somewhat mixed emotions. He was rather worried. If his identity was exposed one day, would the Tianyuan clan be hunted down by the entire Saints world? After all, he was the successor of the Twin Swords, a disciple of the Sword sect of Violet Heavens from the Immortals world. This was determined the moment he obtained the Twin Swords. This was something that could no longer be changed, nor could he refuse to accept it. The Immortals world opposed the Saints world. The previous master of the Twin Swords was one of the 5 grand exalts of the Immortals world. When the war between the two worlds erupted last time, he had used the Twin Swords to kill many experts of the Saints world. He had already left behind deep grievances. The people who could die to the Twin Swords were naturally anything but ordinary. He could say that basically any of them were existences that dominated an entire region in the Saints world. They were individuals with many disciples and descendants. If his identity were exposed, he could anticipate the terrifying consequences he would have to face. As long as you're here, I think the Tianyuan clan will remain glorious forever, said Shangguan Mu'er. What if I'm gone? Jian Chen sighed gently. He looked at Shangguan Mu'er, and a sliver of shame flashed through the depths of his eyes. He suddenly felt very lost about his future path, nor did he know where Shangguan Mu'er would go if he left the Saints world one day. Was she supposed to go with him to the Immortals world, or did she have to remain in the Saints world? The situation in the Immortals world was unknown. No one knew what would happen to him once he went there. It was unknown whether it would be good or bad. Back in the Neptunian diving palace, the clone that the Samsaric immortal exalt had conjured from a wisp of his soul had said, "Before you've become powerful, returning to the Immortals world rashly won't turn out well." Just that short sentence disclosed far, far too much to Jian Chen. As a result, Jian Chen did not wish for Shangguan Mu'er to continue risking her life with him in the Immortals world, as it was unsuitable for her to go there in the first place with her identity as the successor of the third ancestor. However, if she remained in the Saints world, she would still be affected by him. She was the successor of the third ancestor, yet she had married a person from the Immortals world. She would definitely be condemned by all. If you're not around, I'll protect the Tianyuan clan, Shangguan Mu'er said firmly. She stared off into the distance, giving off an inspiring sense of determination. Jian Chen sighed secretly. How would he be willing to let Shangguan Mu'er inherit all the burden he had to bear? H felt especially sorry when he thought of how the burden of the clan would rest on a woman like Shangguan Mu'er. I hope I'll still have the chance to leave quietly. That way, it'll be easier for Shangguan Mu'er. Jian Chen could only pray inside. However, it was not like he did not have a trump card. He still had the heavenly palace of Bixing as a final path of retreat. However, he was uncertain whether this card would still be useful once his identity was exposed. Boom! At this moment, a great rumble rang out from the front of the Tianyuan clan. Powerful energy wreaked havoc, directly tearing the discussion hall into pieces. The suddenness of all this broke Jian Chen's train of thought. His face immediately became ugly as he teleported over with the laws of space. The front courtyard of the Tianyuan clan had descended into darkness. This was the work of an infinite prime's laws of darkness. Once trapped in there, even god kings would be rendered blind. The person who did all this was a middle-aged man in black clothes. He hid within the darkness, stabbing towards Shiyu with a dark sword. Shiyu wore a god artifact armor on her, so she was protected by 3 layers of light. Each layer of light came from a defensive treasure and was extremely powerful. It could block an attack from a primordial realm expert. This was what her father, the Shi Emperor, had given her to protect her life. But now, a small hole had appeared in the 3 layers of light. They had all been pierced, having been stabbed through by the middle-aged man. In the end, he left behind a deep mark on Shiyu's armor. The man's attack was just too powerful. After penetrating Shiyu's 3 layers of defense in a single stroke, the remaining force was still beyond what the god artifact could endure. A portion of it entered Shiyu's body. Blood sprayed from Shiyu's mouth as she was launched into the air. She heavily slammed into a stone wall behind her, becoming greatly injured. Seeing how he had failed to kill Shiyu in a single strike, pity appeared in the man's eyes. However, he did not hesitate. He did not launch a second attack and immediately retreated, hiding back into the darkness. At the same time, a huge hand condensed from energy reached out from the depths of the Tianyuan clan. Wherever it passed by, space would twist heavily. It shot right towards the black-clothed man with monstrous power. Su Ran had taken action. Before her hand had even arrived, a tremendous pressure descended first, sealing up the space around the black-clothed man. However, Su Ran actually failed to grab anything with that. The man had already vanished into the darkness without leaving any traces behind. In the next moment, Su Ran immediately expanded the senses of her soul. It enveloped the entire Pingtian Empire in an instant as she attempted to find where the man was hiding. However, Su Ran found nothing in the end. The man was clearly an extremely skilled assassin. He was only an infinite prime, but his ability to hide was extremely impressive. As a result, even someone like Su Ran failed to discover his traces. The laws of darkness that enveloped the Tianyuan clan receded with the man's retreat. Jian Chen had arrived at a certain time when this all happened, and he was currently standing right where the man appeared last with his eyes closed, as if he was sensing for something. Only now did the primordial realm protectors of the Tianyuan clan rush over, but they completely missed the assassin. The black-clothed man moved far too quickly. His attack to his retreat had been completed in a split second. He was so fast that the experts of the Tianyuan clan failed to react in time. Su Ran's figure also appeared high in the sky. She had come in person. She hovered there as she gave off a blanketing pressure. Her expression was very ugly. An infinite prime had actually managed to escape under her watch, which was humiliating for her as a chaotic prime. Especially when she saw the 3 layers of light that had been penetrated and the deep mark on the god artifact, her face became extremely sunken. Running won't be that easy. It was also at this moment that Jian Chen's eyes snapped open. His eyes surged with killing intent as he immediately vanished. He arrived above a lake 100 kilometers away instantly through the laws of space and stabbed out at the empty air with his 9-star sword of heavenly ways. Chapter 2654. The Shadow Prince Bang. Immediately, a violent rumble rang out. Powerful energy surged, directly ripping through the surrounding space. Waves hundreds of meters tall were stirred up in the lake below. Jian Chen's 9-star sword of heavenly ways collided with a dark sword. This was a clash between experts at the primordial realm. Every single strike was devastating. Their clash this time managed to throw all the water in the small lake into the air. As a result, a huge ditch replaced the rippling lake surface. Jian Chen had forced the black-clothed man out of the space there. He glanced past Jian Chen coldly and deeply. He was shocked. His ability to hide was almost unmatched. As long as he stayed hidden, even the senses of souls of chaotic primes would fail to find him. But now, his concealing technique that he took pride in was actually useless before Jian Chen. An infinite prime had actually discovered his traces. He found this difficult to believe. It must be a coincidence, thought the black-clothed man. He forcefully suppressed his churning vital energy and retreated as quickly as he could. At the same time, the laws of darkness descended, instantly enveloping a range of 1,000 kilometers. He vanished once again in the darkness. Killing intent shone in Jian Chen's eyes. This time, he did not close his eyes to use the senses of his soul. Chaotic force surged within him as the 9-star sword of heavenly ways conjured star upon star, shining with starlight. Jian Chen directly slashed out at the darkness. With that, the space there immediately cracked. Under the illumination of the resplendent starlight, the laws of darkness that filled the area receded. The starlight seemed to purify the laws of darkness it came in contact with. Of course, that was not actually what happened. Instead, Jian Chen's slash was just too powerful, surpassing the black-robed man's laws of darkness. Before the might of the 9-star sword of heavenly ways, the laws of darkness rapidly dispersed. Jian Chen's slash did not land right there. Instead, it shifted through the laws of space, landing in a region of space several dozen kilometers away. Bang! With a grunt, the space there trembled violently. A sword tip shining with resplendent star lights swept out, and a black-clothed man immediately fell out from a mist of blood. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he was thrown backwards. His ability to flee was just as impressive as his extreme skill at hiding. When he enveloped the surface of the lake with his laws of darkness earlier, he had already silently fled several dozen kilometers. However, no matter how great at fleeing he was unable to escape under Jian Chen's watch. "How did you discover me?" Finally, the black-clothed man could not help but ask. He understood his abilities extremely well. With the various techniques he possessed, if he wanted to flee wholeheartedly, even many chaotic primes would fail to stop him. Now that Jian Chen had stopped him several times, he felt very perplexed. Although he knew Jian Chen grasped the laws of space and could sense the minute pulses in space, his abilities would not cause any ripples in space. The laws of space alone would not be able to locate him with precision. Suddenly, a powerful pressure spread out mightily. The black-clothed man immediately felt his body sink. The tremendous pressure that permeated the surroundings had suddenly immobilized him. The black-clothed man's face changed drastically. During that short moment of delay, a chaotic prime had completely locked onto his presence. He was in danger. This time, the black-clothed man no longer had a chance to flee. A huge hand fell from the sky with a chilling energy storm. It sealed the surroundings and grabbed the man in a single stroke. Spurt! Blood sprayed from the black-clothed man's mouth. Before the energy hand, he was as feeble as an infant. Immediately, he was heavily injured. The hand also trapped him firmly, leaving him completely immobilized. At that moment, no matter what unfathomable techniques he possessed, he no longer had the power to use them. He could have escaped under the watch of a chaotic prime with his techniques if he had not been captured yet. However, his fate was out of his hands now that he had ended up in the hands of a chaotic prime. "Who are you? Who sent you?" Jian Chen suddenly appeared before the black-robed man and stared at him coldly. Afterwards, figures flickered behind him. The protectors of the Tianyuan clan had all caught up, surrounding the black-clothed man cautiously. The man seemed to be around 40 years of age. His appearance was nothing special at all, the type that would not raise any attention if thrown into a crowd. He knew that he was doomed, but he showed no fear at all. He had accepted death. "Tell me how you discovered me, and I'll tell you my identity," the black-clothed man said calmly. He did not care about death at all. He truly wanted to find out how Jian Chen had managed to find him. He understood his techniques to hide far too well. He could understand it if he had been caught by some rather powerful chaotic primes, but he struggled to accept that it was an infinite prime. As a result, even if he had to die, he wanted to die knowing. "You probably don't know I have the laws of space. No matter where you hide, you remain in this region of space. As long as you're there, you can't hide from me with your current level of cultivation," said Jian Chen. "Impossible. My secret technique is unlike any other. Even if you've comprehended the laws of space, you can't find any trace of me." The black-clothed man refused to believe it. "Patriarch, I know who he is," Protector Xing said at this moment. His eyes twinkled as he stared right at the man's face, studying it. "If I've guessed correctly, he should be the elder brother of the previous emperor of the Blood Sun Empire, the Shadow Prince. The Shadow Prince is someone who hides in the dark. He basically never reveals himself in public, so there aren't a lot of people who know him in the Blood Sun Empire. However, the Shadow Corps founded solely by the Shadow Prince is the most mysterious as well as the most powerful squadron in the Blood Sun Empire. Not only do members of the Corps possess great battle prowess, but all of them are skilled in strange assassination techniques as well. They've always been the trump card of the Blood Sun Empire. The Shadow Corps were basically uprooted by the great clans when the Blood Sun Empire was destroyed. However, they failed to find the leader of the Corps, the Shadow Prince. "Who would have known he would appear here?" said Protector Xing. He had personally taken part in the destruction of the Blood Sun Empire. However, he had not acted openly, only secretively. As a result, he knew a lot. "The Shadow Corps have been uprooted? You are overconfident. How can the Shadow Corps personally founded by me be destroyed so easily?" You only know less than half of the Shadow Corps' entire force. Tian Yuan clan, what awaits you is the endless assassinations from the Shadow Corps. Ha! The Shadow Prince laughed aloud. A transparent flame rose up from his body, and he was slowly reduced to ashes. His soul perished. He knew he would definitely face death, so he used a secret technique to commit suicide without a second thought. The Shadow Prince was dead, but Jian Chen's furrowed brows would not ease up no matter what. Protector Xing, Protector Bai, Protector Mei, and Protector Shui were rather stern as well. The survival of the Shadow Corps would mean a constant threat to the Tian Yuan clan. Although the Corps was unable to threaten them, the primordial realm experts, the godhood cultivators in the clan would no longer be safe. Chapter 2655. Influence Jianchen returned to the Tian Yuan clan. Currently, the clan was in a state of high vigilance, as they were ready for a possible second assassination attempt. Jianchen made the first heavenly layer infinite prime, Heya, watch over Shiyu. Fortunately, Shiyu had many measures to protect herself. As a result, she did not suffer any too severe wounds when the Shadow Prince personally tried to assassinate her. With some healing pills, she made a full recovery very soon. Sister Shiyu, how are you? How are your wounds? Do they hurt? Mo Yan clutched Shiyu's hand tightly from beside her. Mo Yan's eyes were filled with tears as she expressed her worry and pain. Mo Yan, didn't I tell you that I'm fine already? It's only a small wound. I'll be fine very soon. Shiyu smiled without minding it too much as she stretched her arms and legs casually. Ever since she began to manage the various affairs of the Tian Yuan clan, she rarely smiled. Her face would be stern at almost all times as she dedicated herself to the clan. She would only show this smile when she saw Mo Yan. Even blood sprayed from you, yet you still say you're fine. Once Brother Jianchen returns, I'll definitely get him to avenge you. Mo Yan swung her fist furiously. Just when she finished speaking, she saw Jianchen walk in from outside. Her face immediately lit up, and she left Shiyu's side without any hesitation. She ran over to Jianchen and grabbed his arm in an extremely natural manner. Brother Jianchen, you finally returned. Did you catch the assassin? Brother Jianchen, Sister Shiyu's wounds were so deep. You have to avenge her. Don't worry, I've already avenged her. Mo Yan, you should return first. There's something I have to talk about with your sister Shiyu, said Jianchen. All right then. You guys talk. I'll come find you after you are done. Mo Yan knew Jianchen had important matters to discuss with Shiyu. She was never interested in these matters, which was why she never asked about the affairs of the clan. The person who tried to assassinate you was a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime. He was the Shadow Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Jianchen looked at Shiyu and became rather stern. I think that the Shadow Corps of the Blood Sun Empire still have quite a number of lingering forces. They're skilled at assassination, and they move through the dark. They'll probably pose quite the problem to those who leave the clan to attend to certain affairs. The Shadow Prince. It's actually him, Shiyu murmured softly. A gleam of vicious light flashed through her eyes, and she said, Don't worry, Patriarch. I will handle this matter. Jianchen nodded before sighing softly. Actually, there are a lot of innocent people from the Blood Sun Empire. If there really are people like that who have managed to survive somehow, just spare them. There has already been enough blood spilt in this war that enveloped the entire plain. Jianchen knew that the destruction of the Blood Sun Empire was not the Tian Yuan clan's fault entirely, as the only person they truly had grievances with was the Ninth Prince. The destruction of the Blood Sun Empire was a result of the Four Symbols Alliance's defeat. The Blood Sun Empire was a part of the Four Symbols Alliance. Naturally, the Blood Sun Empire would not be able to avoid the same fate once the Four Symbols Alliance was destroyed. Even if the Tian Yuan clan did nothing, the Righteous Alliance would not spare them. It was just that the person to blame had become the Tian Yuan clan. It had become Shiyu. In the next few days, the Tian Yuan clan cleansed the remaining forces of the Blood Sun Empire. They basically used all the power they possessed to scour the entire southern region for traces of the Shadow Corps. Basically, all the organizations in the southern region used everything they had to cooperate with the Tianyuan clan. They left no stone unturned in the southern region. The Tianyuan clan's operation this time truly demonstrated its immense influence in the southern region. With a single call, the world would respond. With a single order, no one dared to disobey. At the same time, the revenge from the Shadow Corps truly began. Members of the Tianyuan clan scattered across the southern region faced their assassination attempts. Members of the clan died, but people from the Shadow Corps fell in battle as well. It was not just the Tianyuan clan. Even the clans that controlled the Blood Sun Empire faced assassinations and suffered losses. However, the assassinations from the Shadow Corps gradually stopped after a few days, as their targets, both the Tianyuan clan and the clans in control of the Blood Sun Empire, were in a highly alert state. The Shadow Corps would pay a certain price whenever they were mobilized, so they suffered rather heavy losses as well. During this time, the number of primordial realm protectors in the Tianyuan clan increased once again because the clan was now huge. In order to fulfill the needs for development, they were forced to recruit new protectors and godhood cultivators to expand the clan's forces. The Righteous Alliance had contacted Jianchen as well. They wanted to give the northern and western regions to the Tianyuan clan so that the Tianyuan clan could be in control. Behind the Tianyuan clan was the martial soul lineage. The Righteous Alliance had personally witnessed the strength of the martial soul lineage. At the same time, they were the final victors and managed to eliminate the Four Symbols Alliance only because of the martial soul lineage. As a result, the Righteous Alliance wanted to gift the western and northern regions to the Tianyuan clan to maintain a friendly relationship. However, Jianchen managed to decline indirectly. He was already limiting the development of the Tianyuan clan, so he naturally did not wish to see the clan expand into the two other regions. Jianchen did not care about the level of influence the Tianyuan clan had on the Cloud Plain or the size of its territory. He only hoped the people of the Tianyuan clan could remain gathered in one location so that he could make them retreat in the shortest amount of time possible when they needed to. However, after Jianchen turned down the western region, the Jinjian Empire came to visit the Tianyuan clan. At the same time, they brought many impressive princesses, hoping to engage them to the Tianyuan clan. During the recent war, the Jinjian Empire of the western region had wavered, which displeased the Righteous Alliance. As soon as the war ended, the Jinjian Empire was the first to be booted from the alliance. The Righteous Alliance's attitude towards the empire led to some upheaval in the empire. Many organizations began to scheme, and they actually began to show signs of banding together and revolting. Originally, the Jinjian Empire wanted to suppress them, but they had never thought that they would see the shadow of the Shi Empire of the northern region and the Zaheo Empire of the eastern region behind these organizations. Now that these two empires were extending their paws over, the Jinjian Empire immediately became quite frightened. Chapter 2656. Sovereign Fruit of the Dragon God. The two empires were still members of the Righteous Alliance, so they represented the Righteous Alliance to a certain extent. In particular, the Shi Empire had a very close relationship with the Tianyuan clan, so their backing was extremely powerful. This was why the Jinjian Empire had come to the Tianyuan clan in such a hurry, doing all that they could to ally themselves with the Tianyuan clan. They knew extremely well that after they were kicked out of the Righteous Alliance, the only thing that could save their Jinjian Empire was the Tianyuan clan. Jianchen did not want to worry about these ulterior motives at all, so he left it all to Shiyu to handle. However, just when Shiyu received the envoys from the Jinjian Empire, the Shi Empire sent over envoys as well. They ended up speaking with Shiyu individually first. Of all the times that the envoys from the Shi Empire could pick, they just happened to pick a time like this. As a result, the envoys from the Jinjian Empire were left unsettled and uneasy. Jianchen did not pay attention to the conflict between the organizations on the Cloud Plain. Instead, he remained in the Forbidden Grounds as he carefully inspected Newbie's wounds. Newbie's had awakened a long time ago. However, his injuries were still extremely severe. It would be very difficult for him to make a complete recovery. Newbie's sat on the ground in his human form. His face was extremely pale and haggard. He seemed sickly. Jian Chen, Shangguan Mu'er, Qing Yishuan, and Su Ran were all gathered there. They all frowned as the atmosphere weighed heavily. Newbies said weakly, "Even though it would be difficult for me to recover, I would still be able to recover if I suffered these injuries under ordinary circumstances. However, I never thought that my bloodline would just happen to evolve at that time. I was heavily injured before I finished evolving, forcefully disrupting the evolution. Not only did it harm my vitality, but even my bloodline was damaged." Newbies sighed before continuing, "The evolution that I, the great Newbies, have been dreaming of will probably come to a stop here. No matter how much essence I absorb from my clansmen, I won't be able to make up for the damage to my bloodline. Senior Su, you are a chaotic prime, someone in possession of insight and knowledge far greater than what we can ever match up to. May I ask if you know how to heal Newbies' bloodline?" Qing Yishuan asked. She and Newbies both came from the Tianyuan continent after all, so they naturally developed a sense of closeness in this foreign land. Now that she saw that Newbies' bloodline had been damaged and his evolution had come to a halt, she felt sympathy for him. Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er both looked at Su Ran eagerly. Damage to the bloodline was completely different from damage to the body. There were plenty of pills that could heal bodily damage. Even for damage to the soul, they could produce heavenly resources on par with the pills. However, there was nothing they could do about damage to the bloodline. They did not even know what kind of heavenly resource or what kind of method was required to heal damage to the bloodline. There were far too few examples of damaging someone's bloodline like what Newbies suffered. It was extremely rare. And for that reason, the method for healing damage to the bloodline was rare as well. Su Ran pondered seriously for a while before shaking her head gently. Jian Chen could not help but secretly sigh after seeing that even Su Ran was powerless. Su Ran's origins were anything but ordinary. She was technically the Inata Grand Exalt's grand disciple. Although she had never been recognized by the Inata Grand Exalt, what she received was still extremely impressive. She knew many things. Since even Su Ran did not know the method, Jian Chen's heart sank with disappointment. "Newbies, don't worry. I'll definitely find a way to heal the damage to your bloodline so that you can keep evolving," Jian Chen swore. If Newbies' bloodline could not recover, it meant that a majority of his future accomplishments had been forcefully removed. Such a matter was difficult for any cultivator to accept. "Master, we know something that can heal Newbies' bloodline." At this moment, the voice of one of the sword spirits rang out in Jian Chen's head again after all this time. It came from Ziying. The moment the voice rang out, Jian Chen shifted his attention to the two of them. After all this time, Jian Chen discovered that Ziying and Qing Sua's bodies had consolidated further. Moreover, they had become quite a lot more powerful than before. As their strength recovered, their ability to hide became greater and greater as well. Coupled with Jian Chen's cooperation, even high-level Grand Primes would struggle to discover the existence of the sword spirits if Jian Chen stood before. "Yeah, Master. Not only will this item be able to repair Newbies' damaged bloodline, but it will even allow his bloodline to change drastically, allowing him to metamorphose," said Qing Sua. Jian Chen gathered his attention with that. He immediately asked, "Ziying, Qing Sua, tell me what it is called. Where can you get it?" "It's called the Sovereign Fruit of the Dragon God. It's the sacred fruit of the Dragon Clan. All members of the Dragon Clan can make a complete recovery with it. It's basically equivalent to a second life. Of course, only members of the Dragon Clan can use the Sovereign Fruit of the Dragon God. It will only be detrimental if people not from the Dragon Clan ingest it." Jian Chen was rather puzzled with that. Since only members of the Dragon Clan could use the Sovereign Fruit of the Dragon God, why would it be able to heal the damage to Newbies and allow him to benefit greatly? However, before Jian Chen could ask, the sword spirits explained, the path of evolution that Newbies currently walks is towards ancestral dragons. Although he's nowhere close to being a part of the Dragon Clan, his bloodline has parted from the bloodline of the golden-striped silver snakes after several evolutions. He's gradually approaching the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. Of course, if that was it, the sovereign fruit of the Dragon God would still be detrimental to him. However, A fruit with Shenhuang Qi would be a completely different case. Shenhuang Qi possesses the power of creation. As a result, if the sovereign fruit of the dragon god possesses Xuanhuan Qi, not only will it be able to deal with all of Newbie's problems, but he'll even be able to benefit greatly. It will urge on the evolution of his bloodline. I've never heard of this fruit before, so where would we find it? Moreover, one that possesses Shenhuang Qi, Jianchen frowned. He was rather troubled. Master, you don't need to worry about this. Remember how there was an entrance to a Shenhuang microcosm in the sea realm within the lower world you were in before? As long as you can reach its depths, you'll definitely find a sovereign fruit of the dragon god, said Qing Su. Jian Chen's eyes immediately lit up from that. The lower world that the sword spirits mention was naturally the one where the Tianyuan continent resided in. There was indeed an entrance to a Shenhuang microcosm there. However, that Shenhuang microcosm is of a very high level. There will definitely be extremely powerful Shenhuang beasts in there. You basically won't be able to set foot in there without the strength of an immortal exalt, Qing Suo continued. The so-called immortal exalt she spoke of was equivalent to Grand Prime of the Saints' world. Chapter 2657. News about Sacred Feather. It's not hard to find an immortal exalt. I do have a very good person in mind. With that senior strength, he'll be able to roam the Shenhuang microcosm uninhibited. However, the Shenhuang microcosm only opens once every 10,000 years. It has only been a few hundred years since it last opened, so I probably have to wait for over 9,000 years before I can get the sovereign fruit of the dragon god? Jianchen said. His conversation with the sword spirits completely happened in his mind. With a single thought, he could convey a lot of information. There was no need for him to speak or let anyone else know about their conversation. Master, are you speaking of Emo Tianyun? Ziying asked. He and Qing Suo placed a great deal of importance on Emo Tianyun. Yeah, Senior Emo Tianyun. He's trustworthy, said Jianchen. He was not confident about gaining battle prowess on par with Grand Primes during this period of time. Out of all the experts at that level he knew, he only trusted Emo Tianyun. Shangguan Mu'er, Qing Yishuan, and Su Ran saw how Jianchen remained quiet within the Watercloud Hall, so they all thought he was in sorrow about Newbie's. Unfortunately, there really was nothing that they could do about Newbie's bloodline, so the three of them remained silent as well. At that moment, the atmosphere within the Watercloud Hall became rather heavy. But suddenly, the Watercloud Hall began to tremble violently, and this was soon followed by a frantic warning from the artifact spirit. Oh no, Master, someone extremely powerful has intruded. Shangguan Mu'er, Qing Yishuan, Su Ran, and Jianchen were all surprised. However, before they could respond, a rather young voice rang out. Hee, don't be nervous. I have no ill intentions for coming here. Jianchen, have you dealt with the recent matters on the cloud plane? With that, the heartless child appeared silently before the four of them. He was just too powerful. Although the Watercloud Hall was a medium-quality god artifact with its artifact spirit intact, it was unable to stop him. As a result, the Divine Hall posed no obstruction to his forceful intrusion. The artifact spirit could only stare at him powerlessly. Su Ran, Qing Yishuan, and Shangguan Mu'er became cautious when they saw the heartless child. In particular, Su Ran became stern. She understood very well that no ordinary Grand Prime could intrude upon the Watercloud Hall so easily. The child's cultivation was truly unfathomable. So it's Senior who has come to visit. Please forgive me for failing to welcome you. Jianchen immediately clasped his fist in greeting. Although he had no idea why the heartless child had come looking for him, the child did save his life a few days ago after all. Though, may I ask why Senior is concerned about whether I've dealt with the matters on the cloud plane? Is Senior in need of me? Jianchen continued to ask. He felt curious and puzzled. He believed that the heartless child held some ulterior motives in assisting him. I've come for two matters. The first matter is a piece of news I bring to you. As for the second matter, it's based off the first. I want you to help me with something small, the heartless child said relaxedly. May I ask what Senior needs from me? However, my strength is nothing before Senior, so I may not be capable of assisting Senior. Jianchen clasped his fist. The heartless child sniggered. Jianchen, don't belittle yourself. Your strength is indeed nothing before me, but you are an extremely great choice under certain circumstances. You speak too greatly of me, Senior. Jianchen was extremely modest. All right, let's not waste any time. I'll mention what I need help with later. I'll tell you the news now. Though, due to some reasons, it's best if other people don't know about this, so let's talk elsewhere, the heartless child said indifferently before waving his hand. Immediately, a powerful energy wrapped around Jianchen. The two of them vanished. The heartless child did not take Jianchen that far away. They simply arrived in the clouds above the Tianyuan clan. The heartless child extended a finger, and the sea of clouds before him immediately pulsed. 2 snow-white seats and a small, round table extended from the sea of clouds. Whether it be the seats or the table, they were all condensed from the sea of clouds. The heartless child clearly possessed a great ability to transform things. His techniques were unfathomable, and even just the furniture he condensed from the clouds was far tougher than rock. Moreover, Jianchen could sense the complicated power of waves circulating within the furniture, resonating with the world and abiding by some truth of order. Please sit. The heartless child gestured towards Jianchen. He sat down on one of the seats, and with a wave of his hand, a few pieces of spiritual fruit immediately appeared. They gave off quite a fragrance. He picked up one of them casually and bit into it. You should be familiar with a kid called Sacred Feather. What? Sacred Feather? Jianchen was not particularly attentive at the very start, but he was immediately surprised when he heard the mention of Sacred Feather's name. His eyes shone brightly and he asked immediately, Senior, you have news about Sacred Feather? Ever since Sacred Feather left, Jianchen had received no more news about him. He had no idea how Sacred Feather was doing right now. The vast saint's world was filled with danger. It was a place where slaughter could be seen anywhere. Even primordial realm experts died regularly, so Jianchen really was rather worried when Sacred Feather left to roam the saint's world as an overgod. After all, he and Sacred Feather were closer than ordinary friends. Jianchen had carried Sacred Father in his arms the moment the latter was born. He had fled for their lives, escaping the pursuit of enemies. They had gone through thick and thin together. Even though he and Sacred Feather referred to each other as brothers, Jianchen treated him more like a son. He had basically raised Sacred Feather alone. That was more than enough to explain the depth of their relationship. I do indeed have news about him, but his current situation is not great. He's in life-threatening danger. The heartless child munched on his fruit as he said with a full mouth. That seemed to trigger Jianchen's most sensitive nerve. He leapt to his feet and said, Senior, what has happened to Sacred Feather? Where is he right now? The heartless child glanced at Jianchen. He was not displeased by Jianchen's violent reaction. Instead, he secretly rejoiced. However, he showed none of it. Calm down. Listen to me first. There's a miniature world called the World of the Fallen Beast in the remnants of the world where the spirit sages came from. The Sacred Feather you care about entered the world of the Fallen Beast. Of course, there are plenty of people who go into the world of the fallen beast within the ruins of the world where the spirit sages came from. It would not be a big deal if he entered that place at any other time, but he just happened to choose the wrong time. He ended up creating devastating trouble for himself. The world of the fallen beast was created upon the death of an ancient beast that had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime, one so powerful that even among the 9th heavenly layer, there would be very few people that could match up to it. After countless years of evolution, the world of the fallen beast turned into a miniature world teeming with life. And the entire world of the fallen beast is ruled by a race called Darkstar. The Darkstar race are basically the rulers of that world. Sacred Feather has been captured by them. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He frowned as he remained silent. He had never heard of the world of the fallen beast or the Darkstar race prior to this. Now that Sacred Feather had ended up in their hands, Jianchen became extremely worried. Chapter 2658. The Dark Star Race. Senior, what strength does the Dark Star Race possess? Jian-Chen asked grimly. Sacred Feather had been captured and was in constant danger. This made Jian-Chen very worried. At the same time, he thought through all the experts that he knew. He pondered about how he could save Sacred Feather. However, there was one irrefutable fact. Regardless of the price, he would save Sacred Feather. Regarding the strength of the Dark Star Race, the heartless child looked at Jian-Chen mysteriously. In particular, when he saw how grim Jian-Chen was, he could not help but smile for some reason. I had no interest in learning their exact strength, but I do know about their greatest expert. He's actually also the Dark Star Emperor who rules the Dark Star Race. He's a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime right now. What? Jian-Chen was stunned. He began to doubt his ears when he heard the strength of their strongest expert, the Dark Star Emperor. Senior, are you certain that their strongest member is a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime? Jian-Chen asked in disbelief. Do you feel very surprised? Experts in the Saints' world are plentiful. Who knows how many 9th heavenly layer infinite primes there are? If the Dark Star Race was placed on the cloud plane, they wouldn't even be as great as the Blood Sun Empire, so how would they be able to rule over the world of the fallen beast? The heartless child looked at Jian-Chen with a faint smile. It is rather surprising, replied Jian-Chen. The pressure he felt decreased drastically after he got to know the Dark Star Race. If the Dark Star Race possessed a supreme expert, saving Sacred Feather might have been difficult. However, if it were just a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, there was no need for Jian-Chen to worry as much. Of course, he knew that the Dark Star Race would definitely be far more complicated than they seemed. How else could they raise the attention of an expert like the heartless child with that much strength? Don't treat the Dark Star Race as an easy target. Sure, their strongest expert is only a 9th heavenly layer, but there's almost no one who can save people from them across the Saints' world, said the heartless child. Although Jian-Chen was surprised by this, he was not too taken aback. He requested, Senior, please elaborate. The reason is very simple. There's a condition to entering the world of the fallen beast, and that is a limit of 1,000 years old. If people older than that want to enter the world of the fallen beast, they will face attacks from the world. The ancient beast that the world was created from was just too powerful when it was still alive. Even many 9th heavenly layer Grand Primes would not be its opponent. Even though it's dead now, the world of the fallen beast has perfectly inherited its power. There aren't a lot of people who can endure the attacks in the current Saints' world. Moreover, that is only the first of many dangers. The most terrifying danger comes later. As if it were a taboo topic, the heartless child did not go into too much detail. Anyway, even some 9th heavenly layer Grand Primes are unwilling to intrude upon the world of the fallen beast. The only way in is by following its rules. 1,000 years, 1,000 years. Just how many people can break through to infinite prime in 1,000 years? As a result, even though the Dark Star Emperor is only a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, no one aside from Grand Exalts can threaten them given the protection of the rules of that world. Moreover, even if there are supreme prodigies who break through to the primordial realm in 1,000 years, they definitely won't be the Dark Star Emperor's opponent. The Dark Star Emperor is also a supreme prodigy, possessing monstrous talent and an impressive legacy. His battle prowess has already surpassed the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime, reaching the level of chaotic primes. As a result, ever since the Dark Star Race went against the ways and changed their fate, no one who could enter the world of the fallen beast would be the Dark Star Emperor's opponent. Went against the ways and changed their fate? Senior, may I ask what you mean by that? Jian-Chen asked in confusion. The heartless child clearly intended to let Jian-Chen learn a little more about the Dark Star Race, so he did not hold back regarding Jian-Chen's questions. This goes back to a very long time ago. A long time ago, the Dark Star Race had also been a supreme race in the spirits world. A sovereign had appeared for them during their most glorious times. It was also because of the sovereign that the Dark Star Race enjoyed unprecedented prosperity, becoming one of the existences that no one dared to provoke in the spirits world. The heartless child's voice was filled with amazement as if he felt some admiration towards the strength of the Dark Star race back then. Especially when he mentioned sovereign, undisguised yearning, eagerness, and a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. The so-called sovereign was naturally a grand exalt, as only grand exalts who had comprehended a way to the limit and truly grasped it entirely were worthy of that title. However, no matter how glorious a race is, there will be a day when they decline. Even sovereigns will have a day where they die. Afterwards, the sovereign from the Dark Star race died, and their prosperity came to an end. Without a sovereign, the wood spirits that had always opposed the Dark Star race finally took action. The wood spirits were also a supreme organization in the spirits world. They were not weaker than the Dark Star race when they were at their prime. They also possessed a sovereign, except when the sovereign of the Dark Star race existed, they were equally matched, so there had not been any major conflicts between the two races. No one would have the upper hand once a war broke out. After the sovereign of the Dark Star race died, the wood spirits finally moved against the Dark Star race. They slaughtered all their experts in an unstoppable manner such that the Dark Star race almost became extinct. In the end, a small fraction of the Dark Star race hid in the world of the fallen beast. The world of the fallen beast was actually the handiwork of the sovereign from the Dark Star race. He slayed the ancient beast when he was still alive, refining it into a world and setting up some arrangements inside. He turned it into a place for the Dark Star race to seek refuge. At the same time, he set down the conditions of entry, which is the limit of age. Perhaps due to the arrangements of the sovereign from the Dark Star race, or perhaps the sovereign of the wood spirits was benevolent and did not want to destroy the Dark Star race completely. However, regardless of the reason, he did not lay his hands on the world of the fallen beast in the end. Though, the sovereign of the wood spirits did leave behind a sliver of his will in there. Chapter 2659. 2 Matters. The will of a sovereign is the laws of the world, a form of order. The sovereign of the wood spirits personally set down laws in the world of the fallen beast. These laws sealed the Dark Star race in there for all of eternity and limited their cultivation so that they could only reach God King at most and never the primordial realm. Regardless of the greatness of their prodigies, they would never be able to break free from this curse. As a result, not a single primordial realm expert appeared among the Dark Star race for a very long time. God King was the end of their cultivation. Clearly, the Dark Star race was unwilling to simply accept this. Over the countless years, they had always been doing everything that they could to break free from the laws set down by the sovereign of the wood spirits. After generations upon generations of effort, they finally managed to make the laws waver. They paid a huge price to chip away a tiny portion, allowing them to break free from the curse that prevented them from reaching the primordial realm. However, they could only break through to infinite prime. The 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime became the final point in their cultivation. Jian Chen finally understood a little with that. At the same time, his knowledge regarding the Dark Star race became clearer. Senior, has the Dark Star race captured Sacred Feather because of the laws set down by the sovereign of the wood spirits? That's right. After so many years of preparation, the Dark Star race is finally ready to act once again. Sacred Feather was captured exactly because of this matter. According to the information I possess, it seems like Sacred Feather's bloodline is rather special. It relates to the chances of success for the Dark Star race in opposing the will of the wood spirits sovereign and changing their fate. However, it doesn't matter whether they succeed or not. As long as the Dark Star race attempts it, Sacred Feather will surely die, said the heartless child. But Sacred Feather is only at godhood. How can he influence a sovereign's will? Jian Chen asked with a frown. The heartless child laughed. Sacred Feather is only a medium. What really will be opposing the will isn't Sacred Feather, but the power of the world of the fallen beast and a portion of the arrangements left behind by the sovereign of the Dark Star race. However, these two powers aren't under the direct control of the Dark Star race, so they need to employ some special method to direct them into opposing the will. Jian Chen remained silent after listening to the heartless child's explanation. He carefully combed through the information about the Dark Star race and gradually came to a realization. He then asked, "That should be the first matter for why Senior is looking for me. May I ask what the second matter is?" The heartless child's eyes suddenly shone with a chilling light. He stared right at Jian Chen and said gradually, "The second matter is that I want you to stop the Dark Star race's ceremony. Out of all the prodigies I know throughout the entire Saints world, only you have a chance at completing this task." He was correct. Across the vast Saints world, no one else apart from Jian Chen could complete this task. Stopping the ceremony meant opposing the entire Dark Star race or even opposing the Dark Star Emperor. With the Dark Star Emperor's cultivation as a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime and his battle prowess as a supreme prodigy, he was equivalent to a chaotic prime. No other prodigy below the age of 1,000 years could deal with someone like that. A gleam of light shone through Jian Chen's eyes. He asked, "Does the Myriad Bone Guild have grievances with the Dark Star race?" "There's no need for you to probe into that. Jian Chen, I just want to know whether you're willing to help me out with this." The heartless child was stern. Clearly, he cared about this very much. Jian Chen stared at the heartless child sternly and said, "Even if Senior had not saved me earlier, I still would have paid a visit to the Dark Star race just over the matter of Sacred Feather. Since the Dark Star race wants to kill Sacred Feather, I naturally have a grievance with them." The heartless child laughed. He understood what Jian Chen was trying to say very well. It did not matter whether he had grievances with the Dark Star race. As long as they wanted to do anything to Sacred Feather, he would never spare them. At the same time, the heartless child was completely confident that if Sacred Feather really died at the hands of the Dark Star race, the entire clan would have to bear Jian Chen's devastating wrath. That would be a great disaster for the Dark Star race. The heartless child knew that the current Jian Chen might not be able to defeat the Dark Star Emperor. However, once he approached the age limit for entry of 1,000 years, the Dark Star Emperor would never be Jian Chen's opponent. As a peak assassination organization in the Saints world, not only did the Myriad Bone Guild possess great strength, but they also possessed an extremely great grasp over information. Ever since Jian Chen garnered the heartless child's attention, the Myriad Bone Guild had completely investigated Jian Chen. Even though it was impossible for them to find out all his secrets, the Myriad Bone Guild had grasped most of what he went through in the Saints world. That included how he had been saved by the daughter of the patriarch of the Mo clan, Mo Yen, when he first appeared in the Saints world. In such a short amount of time, Jian Chen went from being a deity to a level like this. If he is given another 500 years, who knows what level he'll reach. He possesses unprecedented talent. What a pity, thought the heartless child. As if he knew what Jian Chen's final fate would be, he felt great regret. "Senior, there's one matter I'm unsure about, so I hope that you could explain," Jian Chen said again. Today, he had learnt about many matters that he had previously never touched on from the heartless child. The more he knew, the more questions he had as well. "Tell me what it is. As long as I can let you know, I won't hold back at all." Now that the heartless child had fulfilled the reason for his visit, his mood was great. It was as if he would not hide anything from Jian Chen as long as his questions did not touch on some secrets. Senior mentioned before that the Wood Spirits and the Dark Star race both had Grand Exalts. Are there any other Grand Exalts apart from those two? Jian Chen asked. The Spirits world is a large world on the same level as the Saints world after all. They would naturally have more than 2 Grand Exalts. However, ever since the Spirits world was destroyed, they never gave birth to another Grand Exalt. Of course, that also has to do with the surviving races who have left the Spirits world, combining into the Spiritsages and settling down in the Saints world. The Saints world isn't their world. They naturally can't comprehend the ways completely and become a Grand Exalt by cultivating in a foreign world away from their home, said the heartless child. In other words, it's very likely to find undiscovered legacies of Grand Exalts in the ruins of the Spirits world. Jian Chen's eyes twinkled slightly. He was in urgent need of 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts to obtain the primeval divine hall. If the ruins of the Spirits world truly possessed remaining legacies of Grand Exalts, he would not mind scouring the place closely. The heartless child glanced at Jianchen deeply and said, "Don't even think about a grand exalt's legacy. Those aren't things you can find just by looking for them. It depends on luck. Even if you find one, you might not be able to obtain it." Jianchen smiled resplendently. He did not want the legacies. He wanted the essence blood because he knew it was very unlikely for him to obtain a legacy. He had discovered the location of the ancient Skywolf's legacy in the past, but he only obtained a part of the fortune available. The true legacy belonged to the Wolf clan. "Go back and prepare. I'll personally take you to the ruins of the spirit's world tomorrow. However, there's something I need to warn you about. Don't take a single item that has reached the God tier into the world of the fallen beast, including all your God artifacts and God tier pills." After that final warning, the heartless child vanished from before Jianchen, leaving him sitting alone above the clouds. Chapter 2660. Setting off. "I can't bring in any God artifacts or God tier pills?" What the heartless child said towards the end made Jianchen frown. Did that mean he could not even use the 9-star sword of heavenly ways? The 9-star sword of heavenly ways was his only weapon, as well as the sword that suited him the most. Without the sword, his battle prowess would decrease significantly. Jianchen returned to the Tianyuan clan and began to tidy through everything on him, preparing to enter the world of the fallen beast. He had many God tier pills and various weapons and armor on him. Just the low-quality God artifacts amounted to over 30. Even in terms of medium-quality God artifacts, he possessed 6 apart from the Water Cloud Hall. He also had countless other God tier heavenly resources. He had obtained all of these items from the war this time. They basically all came from dead Grand Primes and Chaotic Primes. Of course, this was not the complete wealth of the Grand Primes. Jianchen had only obtained a tiny portion. After all, not all of the spoils of war went to him. However, even with that being the case, Jianchen was wealthy enough to make many Chaotic Primes envious. Even a few Grand Primes would be jealous. "I'll leave all these God artifacts, pills, and cultivation resources in the Tianyuan clan. I prepared these for the Tianyuan clan in the first place, so they'll be distributed to the meritorious members of the clan sooner or later. I just don't know what to do with the Fortune Jade. The value of the Fortune Jade is truly immeasurable. After all, only the Inata Grand Exalt possesses a piece this large. I'm probably the second person to have something like this. I don't think it'll be safe to leave something so valuable in the Tianyuan clan." Jianchen became rather troubled when he thought of the Fortune Jade. It was just too valuable. Once it was exposed, probably even sovereigns of the world would come to fight for it. The only way for him to not worry was to have it by his side. The Inata Grand Exalt possessed a piece of Fortune Jade that was around the same size. He had even witnessed its projection on the 9th floor of the Inata Tower before. It was basically identical in size, except one was round, while the other was rectangular. Moreover, that piece of Fortune Jade was one of the 3 treasures of the Inata Grand Exalt. It stood alongside the heavenly palace of Bishing and the Inata Tower, which was more than enough to demonstrate its value. "It looks like I can only place the Fortune Jade in a normal space ring. Otherwise, I won't be able to take it into the world of the fallen beast with me." Jianchen sighed gently. The Fortune Jade was so precious, yet it had to be placed in an ordinary space ring. If others heard about this, who knows how many people would puke blood in anger. However, he had no other choice. He could not refine the Fortune Jade, so he was naturally unable to stow it inside his body. However, the Fortune Jade was extremely special. No one could discover its existence with the senses of their souls. It was only visible to the naked eye. As a result, even if he placed it in an ordinary space ring, no one could discover it unless the space ring ended up in the hands of someone else. Of course, the various limitations of the world of the fallen beast were useless to the Fortune Jade. The rules restricted all God artifacts and God tier heavenly resources, but not the Fortune Jade. That was because the Fortune Jade basically surpassed all the God artifacts he knew of so far. It had surpassed the limitations of the world of the fallen beast. It could not be treated as a God artifact. Instead, it had to be viewed as a wondrous treasure produced by the world. It held the power of nature, making it a treasure of fortune. Afterwards, Jianqin entered the water cloud hall. In an open space within the divine hall, the immortal devouring orchid rapidly increased its strength. Several space rings were quietly lying in its surroundings. The space rings naturally held the nourishment Jianqin had prepared for it. Jianqin arrived before the immortal devouring orchid and placed his hand on a huge petal gently. He gave off a mental pulse, communicating with the immortal devouring orchid. I can't take you with me this time. Increase your strength here in peace. I hope that you can give me a great surprise when I return. This was what Jianqin conveyed to the immortal devouring orchid. It was unable to assist him in any shape or form right now, so he did not plan on bringing it with him. However, the immortal devouring orchid had never disappointed him. In the short amount of time he had possessed the orchid, it had grown to infinite prime. It grew so fast that it astounded Jianqin. As a matter of fact, Jianqin even suspected that the immortal devouring orchid would reach chaotic prime faster than him. Afterwards, Jianqin left the water cloud hall and stayed with Shengguan Mu. When she learned that Jianqin was about to go on a journey, she became extremely reluctant to part with him. However, she also knew that Jianqin definitely had something important to attend to, so she did not stop him. Jianqin did nothing else that night. He spent the entire time with Shengguan Mu passionately, all the way until the morning. The heartless child arrived at the Tianyuan clan on time the next morning. His arrival meant that Jianqin's time in the Tianyuan clan had formally come to an end. He was about to venture to an extremely distant place. It was so distant that he would leave the Saints' world and go to a major world that had once been as prosperous as the Saints' world. Afterwards, Jianqin bid farewell to everyone. He handed over a few simple matters regarding the clan's future development to Shiyu before leaving the cloud plain with the heartless child. When he departed, he left almost everything he usually carried around with him in the Tianyuan clan, aside from the fortune jade. He left behind the water cloud hall, only taking an ordinary space ring and a few divine crystals. The water cloud hall became an authoritative symbol of the Tianyuan clan. Under Jianqin's insistence and to prevent future assassination attempts, all the important members of the clan settled down within the divine hall. The water cloud hall became the safest place in the Tianyuan clan. In the vast cosmos, the heartless child personally hurried along with Jianqin. They did not use any teleportation formations. With the heartless child's cultivation level, he was even faster than teleportation formations. He wrapped Jianqin in a thick layer of energy as he seemed to stroll through the stars with his small, short legs at a leisurely pace. However, whenever he took a step, the surrounding landscape would change drastically. It seemed like he was striding through worlds, where he could cross an extremely great distance with each step. Every single step from the heartless child would be equivalent to decades, centuries, or even over a millennia's worth of travel by spatial battleship. Chapter 2661. The Planet Lord's Death. With this speed, it probably won't take long to cross the Saints' world, and you'll be able to go to the 49 Great Plains and 81 planets as you wish. There's no need to waste 5-colored divine crystals on teleportation formations. Envy and anticipation appeared in Jianqin's eyes as he looked at the rapidly changing stars in the surroundings. When he wanted to cross planes in the past, the great price took quite a toll on him, yet the heartless child was currently crossing planes like he was just playing around. Moreover, he was not just crossing planes right now. He was about to cross worlds. I wonder if I can ever attain something like this in my life, thought Jianqin before sighing. He cultivated the chaotic body. This extremely unpopular cultivation method had an issue ever since its creation. No one had been able to overcome it. No one had ever cultivated the chaotic body to great perfection. According to the sword spirits, great perfection of the chaotic body was equivalent to the immortal exalts of the immortals' world, or the grand primes of the saints' world. Let alone that, even if I can actually reach great perfection, it's still nowhere near senior's level of cultivation. Jianqin lowered his head and glanced at the short heartless child beside him. Despite the childlike figure, Jianqin found him insurmountable. He was an existence that Jian Qin could only look up to. As Jian Chen and the Heartless Child made their way to the ruins of the spirit's world, a tablet made from dark green jade sat quietly on an altar within the luxurious divine hall atop Venerable Mountain on planet Wando. Around the altar was a swathe of shrunken land. Mountains and rivers intersected on the land. The features were extremely detailed, just like a living world that had been placed there after being shrunken countless times. If someone familiar with planet Wando saw this land, they would definitely recognize it to be planet Wando with a single glance. All the mountains, rivers, and plains aligned with the ones on planet Wando. The land was basically a shrunken planet Wando spread out into a small map. Venerable Mountain stood at the center of it all. The jade tablet just happened to be placed above Venerable Mountain. In such a position, the tablet seemed like it stood above the entire planet, like a supreme existence. Suddenly, a strange sound rang out in the quiet room. A tiny crack had suddenly appeared on the jade tablet. Its appearance seemed to lead to a chain reaction, where the crack spread in all directions. Within a few seconds, it had covered the entire tablet. In the next moment, the damaged jade tablet finally crumbled completely, falling down as countless fragments. The shattering of the jade tablet seemed to attract the attention of someone outside. Many peak organizations secretly held emergency meetings on planet Wando. Their ancestors who spent most of their time cultivating all emerged from seclusion, and their impressive members all began to return from their journeys. During this time, people began to move secretly on the planet Wando that had enjoyed several years of peace. The various cultivators on the planet had noticed the sensitivity of the situation as well. They could feel a storm brewing. On the Nine Brilliance Mountain on the Nine Brilliance Plain, the Nine Brilliance Star Lord sat within a secret room. The room was extremely gloomy, but it was filled with specks of twinkling light, providing a tiny amount of radiance for the dark room. There were many specks of light, innumerable and densely packed. They filled the entire secret room such that the secret room seemed like the shrunken cosmos. This was the Nine Brilliance Star Lord's way, the way of stars. The starlight in the room had been condensed from his way. It contained endless profound truths of the world. Chapter 2662. The 6 worlds after the young Star Lord left the Star Brilliance Plane, the Nine Brilliance Star Lord announced that he would enter secluded cultivation to make a push towards Grand Exalt. However, he was not actually cultivating. Instead, he remained within a secret room and used his tremendous cultivation to observe everything that happened on the cloud plane through his exceptional abilities. He saw how the young Star Lord used the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's life-bound plume, how the Heartless Child interfered to save Jian Chen's life, and how the young Star Lord died in the end. He knew everything. As a matter of fact, he even knew that the Heartless Child had taken Jian Chen from the cloud plane, and they were making their way towards the ruins of the spirit's world. Although he knew all this, the Nine Brilliance Star Lord did nothing. It was not that he did not want to do anything. He dared not to. He had announced that he would be cultivating in seclusion to avoid the entire matter, to distance himself from it and act like he knew nothing. That way, even if his foster son killed Jian Chen, he would have more than enough reason to explain that he was uninvolved when the Anata Grand Exalt returned. He only needed to hand over his foster son to the Anata Grand Exalt. Coupled with his master, the Blood Tier Grand Exalt, he was completely confident about his own safety. His foster son would just be a scapegoat. Although his foster son had died to Jian Chen's hands, the Nine Brilliant Star Lord still dared not do anything to Jian Chen or show himself. He chose to remain in the secret room, following through with his announcement of secluded cultivation. Even if he emerged right now, he really dared not do anything to Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen had killed his foster son after all. He could act completely clueless while in seclusion, but once he showed himself, what was he supposed to do after learning his foster son had been killed? Was he supposed to avenge his foster son to regain his honor or turn a blind eye to the whole matter? He dared not kill Jian Chen even if he were much bolder, as even his master would not be able to protect him if he took such action. However, if he did not kill Jian Chen, what would everyone think of him? He was certain that his prestige would definitely take a hit. He could easily leave behind holes in the entire plot as well. Once the Anata Grand Exalt returned and discovered that he was responsible for the scheme against Jian Chen through the traces left behind, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord would not be able to bear the consequences. Jian Chen was the Anata Grand Exalt's fruit of ways after all. The Anata Grand Exalt's way would be severed with Jian Chen's death. That would lead to an unforgivable grievance. As a result, it would be inconvenient for the 9 Brilliant Star Lord to show himself for quite some time. He even had to cut off his contact from the Star Brilliance Mountain, or it would be very difficult for him to deal with his foster son's murder. Heartless child, how dare you get in my way? I will never forgive you. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord sat within the gloomy secret room. His eyes were extremely cold, and his killing intent was very heavy. He was furious right now, but he had nowhere to vent it. It was a horrible feeling. As a 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Prime, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord had never felt something so bad before. And the Myriad Bone Guild too. Once I emerge from seclusion, I will definitely make you pay a heavy price. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord ground his teeth as his killing intent surged. He saw how Jian Chen was about to die, how his scheme was about to succeed, but the heartless child's interference rendered it all null. As a result, he completely resented the heartless child and the Myriad Bone Guild. Elsewhere, Jian Chen and the heartless child hurried through outer space. Even though there were many dangers in outer space, none of them were enough to threaten Jian Chen, who had a peak expert like the heartless child by his side. The heartless child simply moved too quickly. In a little over half a day, they had basically crossed through the entire Saint's world, arriving near the edge of the world. This was the boundary of the Saint's world. There was nothing near the boundary. There were no lights, no meteors, nothing as far as the eye could see. It was truly empty. Up ahead is the boundary of the Saint's world. Past the boundary is the Sea of Chaos. The Sea of Chaos separates the 6 worlds, keeping them apart. Apart from Grand Exalts who have completely grasped away, no one can move through the boundaries as they wish. Even I cannot. I can only move through the tunnel that connects the 2 worlds, said the heartless child. The Sea of Chaos? Jian Chen's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that. He asked, Senior, what kind of place is this Sea of Chaos you just mentioned? Is there chaotic force there? And the 6 worlds as well. What are the other worlds apart from the Spirit's world and the Saint's world? Jian Chen was extremely curious. So far, the only major worlds he knew about were the Spirit's world, Saint's world, Immortal's world, and Demon's world. He had no idea about the other 2. He only mentioned the Saint's world and the Spirit's world to reduce suspicion. The heartless child looked at Jian Chen deeply and said, I know you cultivate the chaotic body. Although I have no idea where you got this cultivation method from, it's an extremely unpopular method in the Saint's world. There aren't a lot of people who take that path in cultivation, as not only is it almost impossible to reach the highest level of cultivation, the resources required are extremely astounding as well. Apart from a few Archean clans in the Saints' world, there's basically no large organization that will expend so much resources to raise someone with the chaotic body. Jian Chen was not surprised at all. He had heard a long time ago that the Immortal's world was not the only place with the chaotic body. There were also people in the Saints' world who cultivated it, except they were extremely rare in both worlds. It was very difficult to find someone who practiced it. Apart from the Spirit's world and the Saints' world, the 4 other worlds are the God's world, Immortal's world, Demon's world, and Demon's world. Although there are 6 worlds, only our Saints' world and the Immortal's world remain intact. The God's world crumbled before the Spirit's world. The God clan that currently inhabits the Godnigma plane are actually descendants from that world. The Spirit Sages are the descendants from the Spirit's world. As a result, the Saints' world basically has the forces of the Spirit's world and God's world gathered in it. In other words, the 3 worlds stand on the same line. As for the Demon's world and Demon's world, they are with the Immortal's world, opposing our Saints' world. However, the Demon's world suffered the same fate as the Spirit's world and the God's world. It also crumbled. All the members of the demons' world migrated to the saints' world, forming the four peak races of the immortals' world. As for the demons' world, it's half destroyed. The ways of the world are damaged, and the laws are in decline. It has become more and more difficult for people in the demons' world to cultivate, so their overall power is nowhere close to our saints' world or the immortals' world. The demons' world will probably face the same fate as the spirits' world in the near future. As a result, our saints' world and the immortals' world are the only major worlds still fully intact. Jian-Chen felt an emotional upheaval, not because of the gods' world and demons' world, but because he had never thought that the god clan where Tai Ta resided would come from the gods' world. With Tai Ta's bloodline as a warring god, he had become the supreme king of the god clan. Jian-Chen truly struggled to imagine just what kind of role Tai Ta's bloodline of the warring gods played during an age when the gods' world was fully intact. Jian-Chen was unable to contain his curiosity, so he asked this exact question. Even the destruction of the spirits' world doesn't belong to this aeon, while the gods' world fell apart before it. It's just far too distant in the past. Even the ancient records don't go into much detail, so I can't answer your question. Probably even the descendants of the gods' world, the god clan, can't answer this question for you, said the heartless child. Chapter 2663. The Jiang family and Fang Jing as they spoke. Who knows how far the heartless child had crossed near the boundary of the saints' world. In the end, he and Jian-Chen appeared before a tunnel shining with multicolored light. Jian-Chen subconsciously looked around as soon as he arrived. He ignored the colorful tunnel. Countless spaceships of various sizes and shapes were parked in the surrounding space. All of them had deactivated their protective formations, remaining there quietly without any defenses at all. They were all like ghosts. Groups of soldiers in uniform armor constantly moved from spaceship to spaceship. It was as if they were holding some sort of inspection. There were naturally many primordial realm experts keeping guard, but when they faced these soldiers who were merely at godhood, none of them dared to resist. None of them dared to block the soldiers either. Only the spaceships that had been inspected would activate their protective formations again and slowly pass through the tunnel up ahead. These should be the people waiting to enter the ruins of the spirits' world. I never thought there would be so many of them. Jian-Chen was amazed as he looked at all the spaceships in the surroundings. This is the only tunnel to the spirits' world. Well, the only tunnel for those below Grand Exalt, explained the heartless child. Jian-Chen nodded understandingly. Then he asked the heartless child a little more about the Sea of Chaos. However, the heartless child clearly was unwilling to go into detail. He just warned Jian-Chen to not be tempted by it, and that was all. Sister Shuelian, the two people up ahead aren't actually in spaceships. They must be the backgroundless people that the elder spoke of. They're so pitiful. They don't even have a place to stop and rest. They can only stay in the terrifying outer space without the protection of any formations, in constant danger. The crisp voice of a woman rang out from behind. Several dozen kilometers behind Jian-Chen, a few women stood on a spaceship several tens of thousand meters long. The youngest only seemed to be 17 or 18, while the oldest was an old woman who seemed like she was in her 70s. The person who spoke was the youngest one. It seemed like she rarely ever ventured outside, so she did not have much experience with the outside world. She felt extremely curious about everything she came across and found them to be novel. Her bright eyes were slightly naive. Jiang Ro, watch your mouth. Those who don't ride spaceships aren't necessarily weak, backgroundless cultivators. It's possible for them to be extremely powerful experts who don't even need spaceships. Be quiet here, just in case you cause any unnecessary trouble. Our Jiang family is very powerful, but there are plenty of existences in the saints' world far greater than our Jiang family, a young lady beside Jian Ro said carefully. She seemed to be in her 20s, mature and prudent. Her facial features were refined. Cold light would flicker through her eyes from time to time as she occasionally gave off killing intent. Of course, this killing intent was not directed towards any particular person. Instead, it had naturally formed from what she had gone through in life. It was evident that she was a vicious person. All right, I understand, Sister Shuel Yen, Jiang Ro said without caring too much. She grew up within the Jiang family, which allowed her to understand just how powerful the clan was. At the very least, all outsiders she saw in the past hundreds of years would show deep respect and fear towards the clan. Although she knew that there were many existences far greater than the Jiang family in the Saints' world, it would not be easy to come across them. Lower the spaceship and immediately back up 1,000 kilometers. It was also at this moment that an old woman on the deck spoke out. She looked at the heartless child sternly. Granny, what's wrong? We're all good and fine, so why do we have to back up? If we back up 1,000 kilometers, that will mean remaining in line for so many more days, Jiang Ro asked in confusion. The old woman was a chaotic prime, the person who held the most status on the spaceship. After she spoke, the spaceship immediately began to move backwards. I actually failed to sense when those two people arrived here. They appeared without any traces at all. Anyone who can achieve that is not someone we can provoke. The old woman dared not speak aloud. Instead, she conveyed her message to the people around her secretly. She even enveloped Jiang Ro in a barrier of energy, preventing her voice from being heard by others. Clearly, she was extremely cautious. Jiang Ro immediately shut up. She blinked her rather naive eyes and curiously studied Jian Chan and the heartless child who grew further and further away. At this moment, another woman in white emerged from the cabin on the Jiang family's spaceship. She seemed to be in her 20s. Even though she did not possess an alluring beauty, she was still rather flawless. However, her face was rather cold. She seemed aloof. Her cold eyes would shine with a chilling light from time to time, making her unapproachable. Sister Fang Jing, why have you come out as well? Jiang Ro beamed when she saw the woman in white and immediately ran over. At that moment, everyone on the deck looked towards the woman called Fang Jing, including the chaotic prime old woman. Many of them showed respect. Fang Jing did not belong to the Jiang family. Instead, she was their savior. Their spaceship had encountered a large-scale attack from space beasts. Just when they were in the middle of danger, Fang Jing had suddenly saved them. She even assisted the great elder of their Jiang family to kill the chaotic prime space beast. That was how they managed to survive. As a result, Fang Jing gained the respect of everyone on the spaceship. At the same time, Fang Jing also happened to be making her way to the ruins of the spirit's world, so she joined the people of the Jiang family. Yeah, I've come out to take a look, Fang Jing said indifferently. She was emotionless, without a single trace of a smile. The only impression the people of the Jiang family received from her was her cold bearing. However, the people of the clan did not care about that at all because they had all witnessed Fang Jing's strength. Lady Fang, the old woman on the deck, who was also the great elder of the Jiang family, greeted Fang Jing amicably. Fang Jing only responded with a nod. She remained cold and aloof, as if chaotic primes were nothing in her eyes. She arrived at the bow of the spaceship and glanced ahead casually. She saw Jian Chen and the heartless child. However, when she saw Jian Chen's back, his familiar figure was like a sharp blade that ripped a hole in the memories she had sealed up. Fang Jing's eyes immediately narrowed. She instantly recalled Jian Chen. Chapter 2664. The Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy. It's actually him, Jian Chen. Why is he here as well? Fang Jing thought. As soon as she thought about how Jian Chen had once saved her before she regained her memories, her feelings became rather mixed. However, that was it. After all, she was no longer that pitiful young girl called Fang Jinger anymore. She had regained her memories and returned to her true self. She was the elder princess of the heavenly palace of great radiance, Fang Jing. As a result, even when she saw her past savior, Fang Jing's feelings did not fluctuate much at all. Jian Chen is actually with the heartless child of the Myriad Bone Guild. Afterwards, Fang Jing looked at the heartless child who stood beside Jian Chen. She was not unfamiliar with him, so she recognized him at first glance. A sliver of coldness immediately flashed through her frigid eyes, but it vanished very soon. I hope that Lady Fong can look after the juniors of our Jiang family a little when they go to the ruins of the spirit's world for training, the great elder of the Jiang family said to Fong Jing extremely politely. She did not act like her cultivation as a chaotic prime was a big deal at all. Even though Fong Jing's cultivation was lower than hers, the terrifying battle prowess that Fong Jing had displayed in the battle against the chaotic prime space beast had astounded her. She could even say that without Fong Jing's assistance, it would have been impossible for her to kill the space beast. Heartless child, you've actually come to my place personally. You don't come often enough. Welcome. At this moment, a heavy voice exploded in outer space. It was even more tremendous than thunder, booming through the entire region. The terrifying sound waves expanded as ripples, shaking up all the spaceships in the area. All the cultivators in the spaceships were shocked. The loudness was just too terrifying. If the owner of the voice had not controlled it on purpose, probably just the terrifying voice would have been enough to reduce most of the spaceships to dust. Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy. It's the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy. The Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy who guards the tunnel between the two worlds has actually appeared in person. That's the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy's voice. Heavens, someone like the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy has actually appeared personally. Who is this heartless child? Why have I never heard of him? He's actually enough for the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy to show himself. I've always heard from the ancestor that the passageway between the two worlds is guarded by an exceptional expert all year long. Is the speaker the person that the ancestor mentioned? The tranquil space became filled with soft murmurs from the various spaceships when the voice suddenly boomed out. It was not just the spaceships. Even the soldiers stationed there that inspected each spaceship all stopped what they were doing. They showed admiration and reverence. 1,000 kilometers behind Jian Qin, Fong Jing's gaze deepened. She stared at the space in front of the heartless child. A burly, middle-aged man appeared where she was looking. He was extremely large, like a small giant. He stood at 5 meters tall. He was wearing just a pair of small shorts and was bare-chested. His large, dense, and chiseled muscles seemed to be filled with explosive power. It was quite the sight. Jian Chun could sense vital energy that was suffocatingly terrifying from his body. The vital energy was so powerful that the only thing in Jian Chen's memory that surpassed it was Gusta's fleshly core. What tremendous vital energy! Not only is the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy's cultivation outstanding, even the toughness of his body has reached a shocking level, thought Jian Chen. Heartless child, it has been hundreds of thousands of years since we last saw each other. Have you come to such a distant place to go to the ruins of the spirit's world? Said the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy. His voice was extremely loud, basically like thunder. It was deafening. Clearly, the heartless child and Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy had known each other for many years. They stood before each other and conversed as equals. Although their statures differed drastically, that did not affect how they treated each other. I'm escorting a junior to the spirit's world. The heartless child stated his intentions after a simple greeting. A sliver of surprise appeared in the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy's eyes. He could not help but study Jian Chen carefully. Even worthy enough to be personally escorted by you, the heartless child. It looks like the visit this time to the spirit's world is extremely important to you. The heartless child simply smiled. He did not try to go into detail. Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy, I happen to be in a hurry, so please clear out the tunnel. That's no issue. Since you're in a hurry, I'll let you through first. If you have the time, don't forget to come find this saint. We can discuss our comprehensions. The Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy agreed straightforwardly. With a single order, several infinite primes immediately appeared. With the assistance of the various godhood guards, they stopped all the spaceships that were about to enter the colorful tunnel. Behind every single spaceship was a powerful peak organization. However, when they were stopped, no one voiced a word of objection, as the primordial realm experts in all the spaceships seemed to understand the strength and terror of the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy extremely well. Even though only a handful of them had ever seen the Sacred Lord of Guarding Energy, they had all been warned by their ancestors. Very soon, the colorful spatial tunnel was completely cleared out. All the spaceships that were about to enter it waited outside. The heartless child did not hesitate. He took a step and immediately vanished, having entered the colorful passageway with Jianchen. With his entry, the peaceful tunnel immediately began to shake. The colorful light in there flickered about. Clearly, the tunnel had reached its limit. Everyone on the spaceship from the Jiang family silently watched the heartless child and Jianchen vanish. As for Jiang Rou, who had mistaken Jianchen and the heartless child to be backgroundless, her mouth now hung agape. Her naive little face was filled with disbelief and shock. How did we just meet two people with such great origins? Are there really so many supreme experts in the saints' world? Jiang Rou thought to herself. She was extremely astounded. However, Fang Jing just stared at the spatial tunnel silently. The light in her eyes flickered. Who knows what she was thinking? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.